Chapter 309. It was June 27th on Tuesday, in the 10th week of the semester. In the wee hours of the morning, all the train crews had heard the news. Wang Ling followed grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, and the others on the last spirit bus back to Songhai City. Ajwa actually didn't know much about Immortal Mansion, and it took grenade-throwing Senior Immortal a long time to explain everything to him. Ajwa had personally bought the tickets for the spirit bus back to Songhai City. He had also personally handled the secret transportation of the Silver Unicorn to ensure that no one would find out. After that, there was still a lot of mess left behind by Immortal Mansion that Ajwa had to deal with. It was only then that Wang Ling realized the benefits of having Ajwa as his disciple. Although he had accepted Ajwa on a whim back then, it hadn't been a loss. At the very least, Ajwa was a lot more considerate than he had imagined. But while he had left these trivial matters to Ajwa, there were still some bigger issues that needed to be dealt with together. On the spirit bus, everyone was pondering Fangxing's problem, because Fangxing still hadn't woken up. When we go back, I'll personally visit Brother Fangxing's parents. They must be very worried now. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal rubbed his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. Fangxing had used the excuse of going on a study exchange trip to report to his parents this time. And now that he was unconscious, it would be hard for him to explain to his adoptive parents. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had met this couple of the Fang family a long time ago. They were honest people who ran a noodle shop dutifully, and had doted on Fangxing since he was a child. If they saw their child come back unconscious after going on a study exchange trip, it would be strange if they didn't strangle him to death. If my guess is correct, we'll definitely find the answer in that heavenly materials sword. But I can only come to a conclusion after I use my tools to carefully analyze the material of the sword. Fatty Luo sighed. He now had the heavenly materials sword on him. Before handing it over to Ajwa, he had personally invaded the intrinsic spirit field to get it, along with more than 1,000 spirit swords from Chengyu. Except for the heavenly materials sword, the rest had been handed over to the nation. All right, then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Luo. Fatty Luo nodded solemnly and said, Don't mention it. I'll let you know as soon as there's news. Immortal Toya also expressed his stance. Brother Fangxing can stay on my Chrysanthemum Island for the next 2 days. It'll be easier for me to take care of him. On the other hand, I also want to try some new methods to wake Brother Fangxing up. Wang Ling stared blankly at Fangxing's face. It could be said that Fangxing's coma was the biggest variable in the siege of Immortal Mansion's core base. It was precisely because of this variable that Loopy Toad's dream of a Taoist in red stabbing a fatty with 100 swords didn't happen. According to the normal script, the person who should be unconscious now should be Fatty Luo or Dharmaraja. But he knew that there was no point in discussing this right now. As for the other thorny problem in front of them, it was the art courtyard, who was still in a coma. The girl was sleeping soundly behind the hearse, and drool was still dripping from the corner of her mouth, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Brother Ling, are you sure you've cured him? Why did he still feel that this girl was a little silly? This time, it was Wang Ling's turn to drop his forehead into his hand. Although his great purification spell had expelled the poison in the girl's body, it didn't mean that it could directly remove the girl's attributes. It was possible that even if she woke up, she would still be an idiot. So someone is willing to take her in. As soon as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said this, the men in the car all turned their heads. Needless to say, it was impossible for Wang Ling to take in anyone. Immortal Toya had already taken Fangxing in, while Fatty Luo and Dharmaraja, these two damn fat shut-ins, were celibate. In the end, Xilian Jinren sighed. Then leave this lady to me for the time being. But then again, why are all of you so unwilling? All of you are still single, right? You're already so old. You should think about yourself, and raise a child to support yourself in old age. Useless, useless. Fu Wang waved his hand and chuckled. You have a boyfriend. So of course you don't know the benefits of living alone. When you're single, you can eat whatever you want. On weekends, he could stay at home all day, watch videos, drink and sleep. The room did not need to be cleaned at all. And the most important thing is, I don't lack girlfriends. When he said this, Everyone in the car looked astonished. When did you get a girlfriend? Dharmaraja. I have all kinds. It's just that it's a little troublesome to use them, and I have to blow them out. Everyone. The corners of Tsilyanjinran's mouth twitched. Serves you right for being single for 1,000 years. When Wang Ling got home, it was exactly 6 o'clock in the morning. Because he usually didn't like to talk at home, Father and Mother Wang hadn't discovered that he had sent a clone to school in his place. The only person who had sensed anything unusual was Loopy Toad. Ever since this guy had turned into a dog, its sense of smell had increased by the day. When it had been a toad, Loopy Toad had trained its tongue, which was also called ventriloquism in the toad world. Now that it had become a dog, Loopy Toad trained its nose every day. Loopy Toad could clearly sense that Little Master Ling's real body and his clone's scent were different. If this was Little Master Ling's real body, his skin would give off a faint fragrance. There was no way it could be wrong. So when Wang Ling teleported back to his room that morning, Loopy Toad, who was lying on the mat on the first floor, opened its eyes almost instantly. It knew that Little Master Ling was back. Furthermore, from the subtle aura in the air, Loopy Toad felt that Little Master Ling didn't seem very happy. Indeed, Wang Ling was a little absent-minded today. He didn't know what was going on. But in the morning, he had been staring blankly at an empty seat in class, which was Feng Xing's seat. Wang Ling was very concerned that the great purification spell was unable to purify the strange gas in Feng Xing's body. Fortunately, Fatty Lua was extremely efficient. After school that day, Wang Ling opened his message and saw that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already sent him a screenshot of Fatty Luo's analysis of the Heavenly Materials Swords material list, and even some of the trace elements had been detected. Wang Ling was very familiar with some of the materials in this list, but he had never seen some of them before. After thinking for a bit, Wang Ling simply sent this screenshot to Wang Ming. Less than 3 seconds later, Wang Ling felt his wristwatch vibrate fiercely. His dumbass brother had actually replied in seconds. Haha, I knew you missed me. In Wang Ming's reply he wrote. Chapter 310. The two brothers shared the same impression, that the number of times Wang Ling took the initiative to look for Wang Ming could be counted on the fingers of one hand. Every time Wang Ming was asked a favor, he would be happy all day at the research institute. He didn't even need to eat. He could laugh himself to his heart's content. Sometimes, having a realm of unlimited growth and absolute strength didn't mean that you didn't need help from others. As Wang Ling's cousin, Wang Ming wanted to do whatever he could to help his brother. Thus, even if Wang Ling didn't usually look for him on his own initiative, Wang Ming would set Wang Ling's various communication channels as VIP stars, so that he could be the first to see any news from Wang Ling. So for Wang Ming, instant replies could only be considered a normal operation. In terms of kinship, Wang Ling was the younger brother closest to Wang Ming. If he didn't help his own younger brother, who would? After staring at the screenshot Wang Ling had sent him for a long while, Wang Ming frowned deeply, and in the end, he actually directly called Wang Ling back. Hello, Lingzi. Wang Ling exhaled, using the sound of his breathing to indicate his presence. Wang Ming understood. I'll have to come over personally, and I'll explain it to you when I get there. That's settled then, bye-bye. Wang Ling. By my ass. After saying that, Wang Ming directly hung up, acting arbitrarily, and not giving Wang Ling the slightest chance to refuse. After hanging up, Wang Ming happily crossed his legs at the research institute, and hummed a tune as he did so, as if he had won the lottery. On the side, President Qi, who was still playing with a test tube, glanced at Wang Ming and chuckled. Are you teasing your little brother again? Wang Ming was surprised. How did you know? President Qi stared at Wang Ming, as if he had seen through everything, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help curling up. There was even a hint of mockery in his eyes. You basically study this, and that with a straight face every day at the research institute. It's only when you tease your little brother that you smile like a fool. Wang Ming was speechless for a moment, then pursed his lips. When did I? President Qi didn't reply. because there was no point in arguing like this. He snorted in his heart, a little amused. Heh, this damn brother Khan. When Wang Ling returned home that day, as soon as he entered the house, he saw the old man happily walking into the kitchen with 2 giant grouper in his hands. This was Wang Ming's favorite food, and his enthusiasm for it was no less than Wang Ling's crispy noodle snacks. It was very obvious that Wang Ming had already informed Father Wang, Mother Wang, and the old man of his arrival. Mother Wang had just come back from collecting the clothes upstairs, and was about to go help the old man. When she saw that Wang Ling had returned, she immediately smiled. Ling Ling, I didn't expect you to be so sensible. Wang Ling tilted his head. Wang Ma covered her mouth and smiled. Your brother called me today, and said that you personally invited him to our house. I couldn't believe it. Wang Ling. Sometimes it's better for family to move around more. Otherwise, how could they be considered relatives? Only by moving around more would they be considered relatives. Nowadays, how many people are closer to their neighbors than their relatives? What do you think this is? As Mother Wang spoke, she put on her apron and smiled radiantly. All right, I'll go help with the cooking. You and your dad can spend some time in the living room. Wang Ling was stupefied by Mother Wang's words, and he didn't dare refute her at all. He also couldn't find any reason to refute her, because what she said made sense. Sit. Father Wang patted the sofa for Wang Ling to sit next to him. Because of the explosion in his hand yesterday, Father Wang had done an exceptional job writing the 200,000 words he had planned to send out this week, which was why he was in the mood to go downstairs to watch the evening news before dinner. Wang Ling remembered that it had been a very long time since he and his father had sat on the sofa and watched the news together since Father Wang had started his new book, The Live Streaming Life of the Immortal King. Then, as luck would have it, the TV news was broadcasting a big piece of news. Sitting demurely in front of the camera, the female news anchor glanced at the script she was working on and said solemnly, according to the latest news, Jua, director of the General Administration of 100 schools in Songhai City, worked with the Sanyuan Road Cultivation Police Station in Winter City to destroy a huge dark cultivation gang yesterday. Around the main suspect Cheng Yu and more than 100 other people, the gang has been recruiting people all over the country, spreading out and gathering armed forces. Currently, according to Cheng Yu's account, the net is being pulled in everywhere. This was followed by a live broadcast of a female reporter at the scene. In the image, master of Immortal Mansion Cheng Yu was in spirit shackles, as he was escorted out of a police car by several people and pushed toward the detention center in Winter City. His face was still covered in mosaics. He was still wearing that red Taoist robe, and looked even more haggard than when Wang Ling and the others had left. What we're seeing now is the main suspect in this case, Mr. Cheng Yu, who wishes to remain anonymous. The female reporter pointed at Cheng Yu, then hurriedly moved closer and handed the microphone to Cheng Yu. Mr. Cheng Yu, who wishes to remain anonymous, do you have anything to say at this moment? Cheng Yu. Although the TV image was covered in a thick layer of mosaics, Wang Ling could still see Cheng Yu's stupefied expression as he stared at the female reporter. Father Wang stared at Cheng Yu in the news for 3 seconds, then turned his gaze to Wang Ling. You did this, right? Wang Ling. Father Wang rubbed his chin. I heard from this news anchor that little Zhuo went to Winter City. Usually, he only goes with you when you go, right? Wang Ling looked at Father Wang in astonishment. He had never thought that Father Wang would actually be able to see through his secret. Seeing Wang Ling's stunned expression, Father Wang already knew everything in his heart, and he immediately patted Wang Ling on the shoulder. You're my son. Do you think I can't tell what you're thinking? Wang Ling. Don't worry, I'm not blaming you. This kind of illegal and evil force should be eliminated. Furthermore, judging from how hard you've been working, this group of people has probably been provoking our family for a long time, right? Last time, I heard from your grandfather that there was a burly man sneaking around outside the door, and Aku later taught him a lesson. Watching the TV, Father Wang couldn't help laughing. But this time, you forced him a little too hard. Even his hair turned white. Wang Ling. Father Wang. I remember there was a piece of news a while back about a parent who forced their child to study math, which resulted in his hair turning white. Now that child is counting on his fingers every day to ask what 1000 minus 7 is. Chapter 311. Thus, on the evening news of all the major channels that night, whether it was the official or the local news, the extermination of Immortal Mansion dominated the headlines, and the momentum was almost no less than that of the old devil's arrest. As he watched the news, Wang Ling thought to himself that it was a good thing he had hidden this holy beast. Otherwise, that terrifying group of people from the Animal Lovers Association would definitely take advantage of this incident to start causing trouble. There was nothing wrong with loving animals in itself, but excessive protection was often torture and killing. Holy beasts were originally a group formed from the spirit energy of heaven and earth. In ancient times, they had evolved by relying on the power of their bloodlines. In modern terms, they had evolved and mutated, but in fact there hadn't been many of them in ancient times. In modern times there was almost no trace of them at all. It had been so hard to find a silver unicorn, and it would be a pity to hand it over for nothing. Of course, in Wang Ling's eyes, holy beasts were actually a type of animal. But in most cases, the will of the animal itself should be respected more. Some people were happy that a massive dark force had been exterminated, and some people were worried. In the heart of Shanghai City, on the top floor of the most luxurious office building in Excellent Era Square, the Lord of Mo Immortal Castle's secretary, the lady was restless. She had already seen the evening news. Immortal Mansion had been exterminated. Winter City was Immortal Mansion's core stronghold. All the elders, disciples, core personnel. There had been more than 100 people, and none of them had been spared. The remaining small forces scattered all over the country were also being cleaned up by the joint efforts of the local police. The lady saw that the master of Immortal Mansion, who had been caught, was still a peak-late itinerant immortal. When he had been caught, he had looked as if he had already gone crazy. His face was thin and his hair was white. What on earth had he experienced? The lady leaned back on the huge sofa, her eyes a little absent-minded. She had worked overtime last night to clean up all the accounts between Mo Immortal Castle and Immortal Mansion. Although this fire hadn't reached Mo Immortal Castle yet, it still made her feel a little terrified. Who on earth had Immortal Mansion offended? As she pondered this, the originally transparent French window was suddenly shrouded in a haze. The lady was startled by the reflection of the figure in front of the window, and she hurriedly stood up and bowed. "Greetings, Lord." The black shadow gave a soft and then took a step forward. When it landed, countless black crows appeared out of thin air to form a small wave of birds. After the wave of birds dispersed, a middle-aged man with a gloomy face, a full beard and long hair immediately appeared in front of the lady. The bearded man gave the lady a look, then leaned back in the boss's chair unceremoniously and waved at her. "Don't just stand there. Go make me a cup of milk tea. Last time, we used the fresh milk of an 800-year-old rhinoceros to make a good milk powder. Bring that over, and add 2 pieces of rock candy." "Very well, my lord." The corner of the lady's mouth twitched. She hadn't expected her lord to actually come here in person. There were a lot of first-class teas in the cupboard in her office, but there was only 1 can of milk powder, which had been specially prepared for this leader. In Mo Immortal Castle, she was the only one who knew that the Lord had a special hobby, and that was to drink milk. "Have you finished dealing with the matter with Immortal Mansion?" The man sked and asked as the lady made the milk powder. The lady's spoon in her hand trembled at this sound. The lady nodded. "Don't worry, my lord. We've already wiped clean all connections on the books. They won't be able to trace it back to us. Weren't there 2 girls before that? One was called Azwa, and the other was Ayu. They went after Song Qing-shu. And in the end, one is lying half dead in the hospital, and the other is dead." Sitting in the boss's chair, the middle-aged man rested his chin on his fingers as he said, "Although these 2 are just outer sect disciples of Immortal Mansion, we still have to be especially careful not to give ourselves away. Ayu is already dead, and there's no way of knowing her whereabouts. As for Azwa, I'll take care of her properly. My lord, please rest assured." The lady nodded and personally brought a cup of steaming milk tea to the man. After a moment of silence, she lowered her head and asked, "My lord, why have you personally come to this subordinate's place this time? Is there something you need to tell me personally?" The man picked up the cup and blew on it. Ignoring how hot it was, he directly took a big gulp, leaving a layer of milk foam on his lips. Then he nodded contentedly. I didn't come here for anything else. I just wanted to tell you about the follow-up work. Previously, my venerable self wanted to rely on the stone ghost mask to rise, but before I could do anything, that devil was caught after jumping around for less than half a month. The lady. Then, my venerable self realized that Immortal Mansion was developing very well. In the end, before we could even hand over the cooperation agreement, their core department was wiped out. The lady. So, after putting all these things together, have you noticed a problem? It's that these two incidents seem to be related to the same person, the man said. The lady. Is it related to Great Death Courting Senior, who Song Qingshu is relying on? Not really. The man shook his head and stared at the lady. Have you heard of Ajua? It was him. The lady suddenly understood. This was the director of the General Administration of 100 Schools, who had been in the limelight recently. Think about it carefully. Don't all the major events that happened recently, from the Shadow Stream incident to the arrest of the old devil, and finally the destruction of Immortal Mansion, have they all been related to this person? The man snorted. So, our focus was wrong from the beginning. Speaking up to this point, the man touched his beard and realized that 2 drops of milk had gotten into it. He hurriedly scraped them off with his finger, and then licked them clean. After licking his finger, the man smiled. So my venerable self thinks that our focus should be on this man. It's very likely that all the plans were single-handedly planned by him. He's an unfathomable person. But that Great Death Courting Senior and the mysterious expert in that villa on the outskirts. Don't mind the details. The man waved his hand. My venerable self firmly believes that the source of all evil is this person called Ajua. The lady. The man looked full of confidence as he stared at the lady. Before coming here, my venerable self investigated this person's past. In the end, I found a very interesting person in his high school. As he spoke, spirit light flashed in the Lord's hand. The next moment, a photo appeared in his hand, and he pushed it in front of the lady. Look at this person. This is. The lady took the photo and frowned. Chapter 312. The lady stared blankly at the fat man in the photo. My lord, do you think there's something wrong with this person? This person is number 60 high school's history teacher called Wang Zukang. People call him Old Antique. He once taught Ajua. So my venerable self speculates that this person might be Ajua's biggest backer. But my venerable self's investigation shows that he probably came up with this name after he retired from the martial arts world several hundred years ago. The man smiled slightly. Look carefully at this person's face. Don't you think he looks a little familiar? The lady stared at the photo for a long time, then shook her head with a blank expression. Forgive this subordinate for being slow-witted, my lord. Please enlighten me. The middle-aged man sighed and stroked his beard. Have you heard of the story of Gorgeous Itinerant? Gorgeous Itinerant? The lady was suddenly enlightened. Of course she had. This was the man who had personally established the international ranking list of killers 1,000 years ago. Furthermore, he was the guardian of the list. This was a genuine top-notch expert, who had left behind a lot of illustrious legends in the cultivation world. The lady clearly remembered that when this Gorgeous Itinerant had been famous back then, he had once stabbed a soul formation cultivator to death with a finger qigong, and his strength was unfathomable. But it was said that a long time ago, he had withdrawn from the dispute because of a mistake. The lady stared at the photo with a horrified expression on her face. My lord, are you saying that this high school teacher is Gorgeous Itinerant? The middle-aged man nodded solemnly. That's right. The lady's face was instantly flustered. But, rumor has it that Gorgeous Itinerant is one of the most handsome men in the world. Because she had once been interested in Gorgeous Itinerant, the lady had looked up a lot of information on him. Although she hadn't been able to find a specific photo, Based on the accounts of those who had seen gorgeous itinerant's true face, it could be summed up in 4 words: unparalleled in appearance and unmatched in style. So, how could the real gorgeous itinerant be a fatty who ate spicy strips? The lady stared at the photo and took a deep breath. My lord, this subordinate thinks there's something wrong. You don't allow other people to get fat. The middle-aged man chuckled. Have you ever heard of a different kind of handsome man? The lady. After a pause, the middle-aged man got up and slowly stared at the lady. Don't worry, there's absolutely no mistake. And do you know, back then, there were actually 2 people who established the international assassin ranking. The lady. 2 people. The lord. Gorgeous itinerant is just one of them. There's another senior who's as strong as him, and people give him the nickname, Taoist Taotai. Because its face was incomparably ugly, it looked like a Taotai, hence its name. Many people who have seen his true face were scared to death. The lady, Castle Lord. The 2 of them were originally like brothers. But because gorgeous itinerant was too handsome, all the rumors in the outside world revolved around him. It seemed that it was because of this incident that Taoist Taotai and gorgeous itinerant had fallen out. Moreover, it seems that gorgeous itinerant's mistake, before he left the cultivation world, is also related to this matter. The lady was stupefied when she heard this story, and felt like her brain couldn't take it anymore. Because she really hadn't heard anything about that Taoist Taotai who stood shoulder to shoulder with gorgeous itinerant. She stared at the middle-aged man in front of her, and plucked up her courage to ask. This subordinate is slow-witted. May I ask the lord, why are you so familiar with this matter? The middle-aged man chuckled. Because Taoist Taotai told me himself. He might have gotten fat, but Taoist Taotai is sure that even if this person turned into ashes, he would still recognize him. The lady. Has the lord already recruited senior Taoist Taotai? I wouldn't dare say that. At most, we're partners, and we each take what we need. The middle-aged man waved his hand, then looked at the lady. That's what I wanted to tell you this time. The lady. What's the plan after this? From now on, our main target is this gorgeous itinerant hiding in number 60 high. The rumor is that he has an invincible killing weapon that even a true immortal would be intimidated by. If my immortal castle wants to rise in the future, we can only rely on it now. The lady nodded solemnly. The lord is wise. This subordinate will definitely do my best to investigate this matter. Very good. The middle-aged man nodded. First, we can send some people to infiltrate this school and scout out the way for senior Taotai. The lady replied, yes. Speaking up to this point, the middle-aged man suddenly looked a little nostalgic. By the way, isn't one of the classes that this gorgeous itinerant is in charge of now grade 1? Class 3? The lady. What's so special about grade 1 class 3? It's nothing. I just suddenly remembered that when I was in high school, I was also in class 3? The middle-aged man's gaze suddenly fell on the glass of milk on the table, and there were actually tears in his eyes. My mom even gave me 2 cans of Wangzai milk, the lady. At the entrance of the Wang family's small villa, Wang Ming's personal car driver parked the Aiguanhai war chariot on the opposite side of the road. Ever since Wang Ming had been kidnapped by Jiang Luiying, the younger sister of the master of Shadow Stream, at number 59 high school, this personal car driver had never left Wang Ming's side whenever he went out, for fear that something would happen to him again. President Qi had personally found this driver for Wang Ming. His surname was Zhai, and his first name was Yin. It was said that he was very strong, but Wang Ming couldn't tell why. He just simply felt that this person was a little scary, and that his aura was always chilly. Wang Ming felt that this guy shouldn't be called Zhai Yin, but Haunted House. Seeing that Zhai Yin was about to pull out the key, Wang Ming immediately stopped him. Hey, you can go back first today. I'll give you a break. Zhai Yin didn't turn his head, and only raised his head. His cold gaze was fixed on Wang Ming's face through the rearview mirror in the car, making Wang Ming tremble. Even his words were icy cold. President Qi said that it's my duty to protect you. Wang Ming was a little speechless, because when it came to safety, with Wang Ling around, he didn't have to worry at all. Furthermore, The most important thing was that he was wearing long johns today. Wang Ming pursed his lips and looked at him. But this small villa is full of our family members. Isn't it a little inappropriate for you to get involved? Jiayin. President Qi said that it's my duty to protect you. Wang Ming. Then can you stay in the car? Jiayin. President Qi said that it's my duty to protect you. Wang Ming was helpless, and in the end could only get out of the car with this old driver. Jiayin's face was expressionless as he followed closely behind Wang Ming. Wang Ming measured the distance between them with his eyes. And when he realized that the distance between them couldn't be more than 1.5 meters, he instantly felt a deep despair in his heart. After ringing the doorbell, the old man and Mother Wang were busy in the kitchen and didn't hear it. So Wang Ling opened the door himself. As soon as he opened the door, Wang Ling sensed an icy aura from the person behind Wang Ming and felt the temperature on his face drop. Without another word, Wang Ling directly reached out and pulled Wang Ming into the room, then slammed the door shut with a bang. His hand was so fast that Jiayin couldn't react at all. Chapter 313. The truth was that when Jiayin's car had pulled up to Wang Ling's doorstep, he had already heard what was going on outside, including the conversation between the two of them in the car. Wang Ling had heard it all clearly. At first, Wang Ling had thought it was a little funny to see Wang Ming's bitter expression, but when he saw Jiayin's unforgiving attitude, it was impossible to say that he didn't care at all. In any case, Wang Ming was family. It felt weird for an outsider to sneak in without an invitation. Wang Ling perfectly followed Father Wang in this. He was only willing to be a little more friendly with people he was familiar with. If it had been Mother Wang or the old man, they would definitely have pulled Jiayin in without a second thought. Thus, before Mother Wang and the old man noticed, Wang Ling had pulled Wang Ming in and slammed the door in Jiayin's face. How could an outsider be allowed to join in on such a joyous family occasion? Although he was a little unhappy in his heart, this was the task President Qi had assigned to Jiayin to protect his dumbass brother's safety at his side. Wang Ling didn't make things too difficult for Jiayin, and just cast a small spell the moment he closed the door to turn the perimeter of the Wang family's small villa into a steel barrier. Even a true immortal might not be able to break in. After Wang Ling closed the door, Wang Ming breathed a huge sigh of relief in his heart. He hadn't been willing to leave the research institute for the last 2 days because of Jiayin's antics. He had been complaining in his heart that it would have been better if President Qi had given him a beautiful woman. Who would want to go out all day dragging a human block of ice behind them? Wang Ming touched his wrist, as if it was still warm from when Wang Ling had pulled him in earlier. Seeing Wang Ling let go with a cold expression on his face, the corners of Wang Ming's mouth curled up slightly. He felt that his chance to tease Wang Ling had come. Like a cat, he pounced on Wang Ling and hugged his arm, twisting his body in a rather showy manner as he patted Wang Ling's shoulder and pinched his throat, a faint blush on his face. "Damn you, you're so annoying." Not only did this voice make all the hair on Wang Ling's body tremble, even Loopy Toad's fur stood on end, as if it had been electrocuted. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. "Damn it, he really is an idiot. Yo, little Ming, you're here?" Hearing the noise, Father Wang got up from the sofa and walked over. Seeing this, Wang Ming hurriedly let go and greeted him. "Hello, Uncle Wang." As he spoke, he stealthily squinted and could vaguely make out the bulging veins on Wang Ling's fist. He was instantly frightened, and thought that if Father Wang had been a little later, it was very likely that Wang Ling would have given him a full set of wisdom punch. "Come, little Ming, come in and sit." Father Wang put his arm around Wang Ming's shoulder and pulled him to the sofa, his face wreathed in smiles. He was truly happier than seeing his own son. "What would you like to drink?" Wang Ming sniffed and chuckled. "Drink the soup later. I can smell the fish soup of the star grouper." Father Wang smiled. "Your nose is almost as good as our Loopy Toad's." "Loopy Toad." Father Wang took a sip of tea and turned his head to look at Wang Ming. "Have there been any new research results recently?" This wasn't a polite question, nor was it a greeting. Wang Ling had come to the profound conclusion that this was a question that Father Wang would ask Wang Ming every time he came to the Wang family. It was said that this could give Father Wang inspiration for writing. There is one. Wang Ming nodded. Actually, a lot of things about the research institute were confidential and couldn't be said, so every time Wang Ming talked about his so-called research results, it was always his own private little inventions. In our biology lab, we have eyeballs left behind by soul formation cultivators for us to study. I recently came up with a new invention through this research, but it's still in the trial period. What invention? Father Wang was very curious, and next to him, Wang Ling also raised his eyebrows. This is a long telescope based on the structure of the retina of soul formation cultivators. As long as you have this long telescope, you'll be able to see 1,000 li away, and you'll be able to see everything. Father Wang and Wang Ling both broke out in a sweat. Father Wang, what if this thing is used by criminals? After this research, it will definitely be produced as needed. For example, every police station will be equipped with one to keep an eye on criminal suspects. How can we sell it on the market so that criminals have nowhere to hide? That's good. Father Wang nodded. That was because a while ago, there had been news about a kindergarten teacher who had abused a child and then threatened to say that the teacher had a long telescope that could see everything clearly even if the child was at home. It was said that the child had been traumatized by this incident. When Father Wang had seen this news back then, he had secretly rejoiced in his heart that Wang Ling had been stronger since he was young. It was also fortunate that these kindergarten teachers who had abused the child had been lucky enough not to meet Wang Ling. Otherwise he would have already sent them to meet God. The three of them were chatting on the sofa when Father Wang's cell phone suddenly rang. Looking at the caller ID, he saw that it was Lai Meng Meng. Father Wang could only get up and go to the balcony to answer the call. Father Wang, I'm going to take the call, you guys talk first. Seeing that Father Wang had left, Wang Ling was about to ask about the material of the heavenly material sword, but Wang Ming cut him off first. Wang Ming, I can't explain the screenshot you sent me about the identification of the material in a short time. Let's go upstairs and talk about it in detail after dinner. Wang Ling pursed his lips and sighed in his heart. As Wang Ming said this, it just so happened that the evening news, which had aired earlier, was being broadcasted again. It was still about the extermination of Immortal Mansion. This was probably another major event since the old devil's arrest. This kind of major news would always be broadcasted on TV about 3 times, fully implementing the policy of saying important things 3 times. Wang Ling had already accompanied Father Wang to watch the entire news once, so he had a disinterested expression on his face. Wang Ming, on the other hand, was amused. TSK, the largest dark cultivation force in the history of Huaxiao Nation? The core gang was directly wiped out just like that. From what I heard in the news, although this Immortal Mansion seems to have a very complete structure and a large number of people, it doesn't seem like they've been wiped out before they could even pull off a big scoop. Wang Ming couldn't help sighing. Nowadays, these dark forces are really getting worse and worse. They can't even compare to the dark cooking world and cooking master boy, Wang Ling. When Wang Ming said this, the news just happened to show the scene of Cheng Yu being escorted out. He stared at Cheng Yu in the news for 3 seconds, then turned to Wang Ling. You did it, didn't you? Wang Ling instantly felt powerless to ridicule him. This look and this tone, it was just like Father Wang's. Chapter 314. After dinner, the 2 brothers went upstairs. With his back against Wang Ling's bed, Wang Ming jumped backward and rolled onto it. The corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched as he looked at him with his hands on his hips, feeling a little helpless in his heart. Although his bed had its own bed immortal and pillow immortal, he was much more open to Wang Ming than grenade-throwing senior immortal. This guy had always slept in the same bed as Wang Ling since he was a kid, and now bed immortal and pillow immortal had already tacitly acknowledged him as their second master. There were times when Wang Ling was really afraid of the most shameless people, and Wang Ming was a perfect example of this. Not only was he an idiot, he was also quite shameless, and most importantly, he was completely unaware of it. Wang Ming sat cross-legged on the bed, and looked at Wang Ling with an amused expression on his face. Do you know, Wang Ling? Wang Ming. I like it when you're angry and helpless like this. Wang Ling's face swiftly darkened. Wang Ming instantly cowered at this look, and he immediately cleared his throat. All right, I won't tease you anymore, let's be serious. He knew that Wang Ling's mood was now close to exploding, and if he continued teasing him, it was very likely that he would set a second record for being an academician of Huaxiao's Cultivation Academy of Science. Number 1. The youngest academician in Huaxiao's history. Number 2. The earliest academician to die in Huaxiao's history. Wang Ming was well aware that there were times when he had to stop teasing him. Wang Ming sat cross-legged on the bed and crossed his arms as he looked at Wang Ling. The screenshot of the appraisal report from before was probably an analysis of the materials used for a spirit sword, right? I want to hear you tell me about the origin of that spirit sword. If this had happened before Immortal Mansion had been completely cleared out, there was no way Wang Ling would have told Wang Ming everything. He didn't want to directly implicate Wang Ming. Given Wang Ming's personality, if he knew about Immortal Mansion, there was an 80% chance that he would explore it. The cultivation circle was a little more complicated, and it was best not to get involved if possible. But now that Immortal Mansion had been cleaned out, it could be said that he had nothing to worry about. Furthermore, Zhai Yin was his bodyguard, so he felt that there shouldn't be any major problems. At this thought, Wang Ming spread out his spiritual senses to scout outside the villa. Zhai Yin was still standing at the entrance, and wasn't in the car. He just stood at the door in a military posture, and did not move at all. It could be said that he was quite well trained. Although this guy looked weird, Wang Ling didn't particularly dislike him. Wang Ling stretched out his index finger, and lightly tapped Wang Ming's forehead, and the memory of Immortal Mansion was instantly synchronized. Of course, Wang Ling erased the memory of him in women's clothing. If Wang Ming knew about this guy would definitely be happy for a year. Wang Ming clicked his tongue in wonder as data poured into his mind. It's so **** convenient to use this trick to cheat in exams. Which student doesn't know how to point somewhere? Mom doesn't have to worry about my studies anymore. Wang Ling laughed in his heart. In your dreams. In Wang Ling's view, when it came to exams, it was always better to rely on oneself than on others. Furthermore, in class, almost no one would ask Wang Ling to cheat. The level of the elite class was actually pretty much the same, and getting high marks in the group of heroes was the hardest part. Wang Ling's grades were always average, and his scores were never high or low, so no one in the class wanted to copy his answers at all. Just a while ago, Dopey Gua had even given him the title of Balanced Cult Master because of this. After Wang Ling's memories were transmitted, even Wang Ming, the strongest brain in the world, had to spend a full 5 minutes sorting out the entire memory. Although he already knew that Wang Ling was responsible for the destruction of Immortal Mansion, Wang Ming was still shocked when he learned about the entire incident. The core organization of such a large dark force had been completely wiped out in just one day. According to the main line of memory, Wang Ling had first deduced that Immortal Mansion had used the spirit vein and the holy ice crystal array under their feet to build a mirror space to conceal their stronghold. After that, he had blasted through the space wall and been summoned to the top of Yuntai Pavilion. In order to save Dharmaraja and the others, he had exposed his identity, used his spiritual pressure to directly wipe out all the female inner sect disciples, killed a female elder, killed the silver unicorn, and finally killed the master of Immortal Mansion. Wang Ming was a little powerless to complain. The things that had happened on this Sunday were more than what other people experienced in a year. If this was a serious cultivation novel, a one-on-one duel between two cultivators could take several days and nights to write. But after learning the whole story, Wang Ming heaved a sigh of relief. If that's the case, then the production of this substance in this sword is just a coincidence. Wang Ling didn't understand, and was a little puzzled. Because after looking at the screenshot of the appraisal report, I realized that there was a substance in it that had the same composition as the Tao Talisman seal I made for you. Furthermore, it's the key ingredient. It's the key substance in the Tao Talisman seal that suppresses your aura. Wang Ming looked up at Wang Ling and explained very seriously, "When I first saw the appraisal report on the material of this sword, I thought that someone had already discovered the secret of this substance. But looking at the current outcome, it's probably just a coincidence. I'm guessing that the master of Immortal Mansion himself doesn't know that this thing was mixed in when he was making the sword." Wang Ming couldn't help sighing. "You don't know how difficult it is to refine this thing. Even with the most sophisticated equipment in our research institute, we can only refine a few micrograms of it every year. The master of Immortal Mansion incorporated a lot of materials in the process of making the sword. If it's a coincidence, it's indeed possible to produce this substance." After Wang Ming's explanation, Wang Ling was instantly enlightened. He more or less knew why his great purification spell hadn't worked on Feng Xing. It was most likely because of the resistance produced by the trace amount of this substance that was restraining him. The reason why Feng Xing still hadn't woken up was also because of this strange thing wreaking havoc in his body. Currently, apart from me and you, there shouldn't be anyone else who knows about this thing's existence. At first, I thought the cat was out of the bag, and I was scared to death. Wang Ming heaved a deep sigh and directly fell back on the bed. This thing didn't have a scientific name? Wang Ling stared at him and couldn't help speaking telepathically. "What scientific name? I discovered it in the first place, and I'm not going to make it public, so why would I need a scientific name?" Wang Ming said. "Wang Ling. But I gave it a name." Wang Ming chuckled. "I called it the anti-Wang Ling substance. Wang Ling." This name could be said to be quite simple and crude, because the strange thing about this substance was that it only had a suppressive effect on him. So there was nothing wrong with giving it this name. The material of that sword contains this trace element, but it's a far cry from the amount in your Tao Talisman seal. This thing is very volatile, so you don't have to worry about it. The substance in your friend's body will dissolve on its own in 2 days, and he'll wake up." Saying this, Wang Ming suddenly sat up straight on the bed and stared at Wang Ling with a serious expression. "But, Lingzi, have you noticed a problem?" "Wang Ling? ? I give you the Tao Talisman seal every year, and the suppressive effect actually weakens every year." Chapter 315. Wang Ming left at around 9 o'clock in the evening. He had thought at first that he would directly stay and interact with Wang Ling. But when he thought about how Jiayin was still standing at the door, he gave up the idea. Although a strong and well-trained military cultivator like Jiayin wouldn't get tired standing in a military posture for a few days, Wang Ming didn't really have the heart to make Jiayin stand at the door all night because of him. Wang Ming didn't like Jiayin very much. His style of doing things was completely dogmatic, which was very different from Wang Ming's flexible Academy of Science research policy. But no matter how much he disliked him, the other party was merely abiding by orders to protect him. When Wang Ming left the house, he saw Jiayin staring at him coldly. When he saw that Wang Ming had left, Jiayin put away his military posture and did a perfect 180-degree turn before he slowly walked toward the car and opened the door for Wang Ming. He stared at Wang Ming with the expression of a viper in the jungle staring at its prey. At that moment, Wang Ming suddenly thought of the good thing about Wang Ling's dead fish eyes. His expression was a little stiff, but at least he wasn't cold. "I'll truthfully report what happened tonight to President Qi. I'll verify information on everyone in this villa one by one, and I'll focus on the person who pulled you in," Jiayin said as he looked at Wang Ming. He recalled the awkwardness from before. When Wang Ling had pulled Wang Ming in, he had moved so quickly that Wang Ming hadn't even been able to see Wang Ling's face clearly before Wang Ming had directly disappeared from his sight. Wang Ming looked at him a little angrily and stood outside the car, refusing to go in. "That's my little brother, and my uncle, my auntie, and my grandfather. What are you thinking?" Jiayin's face was cold. "Even if it's second great uncle, it's no use. Business is business." The corner of Wang Ming's mouth twitched gloomily. Investigate. He knew that Wang Ling had the great shielding spell, so even if they found him, it would just be a mosaic. He really didn't know where on earth President Xi had found this freak. It was June 28th on Wednesday in the 10th week of the semester. When Wang Ling arrived at school in the morning, he heard news from two acquaintances. One of them was Tan Qian. The owner of the beef noodle shop was Boss Tan's younger brother, who had come to the villa to cause trouble before. Jinka had taught him a good lesson, and under grenade-throwing senior immortal and Boss Tan's earnest guidance, he had become a genuine snitch. It had to be said that Boss Tan indeed had great foresight. From the first moment he had seen Tan Qian, he had done everything possible to help Tan Qian extricate himself from the muddy waters of Immortal Mansion as quickly as possible. This time, Tan Qian was going to appear in court as a witness to testify against Immortal Mansion. Before that, Tan Qian had also sent a complete copy of Immortal Mansion's peripheral intelligence network to the various Cultivation police stations. It was precisely because of this that the local police were able to quickly carry out operations to clear out the forces at the periphery of the immortal abode. The above gossip came from Grade 1, Class 3's Master of Dopey, Gua. During the morning self-study period, there was a hubbub of voices in the class. Almost all the discussions were about the Immortal Mansion. I heard that this witness's brother runs a noodle shop? Super Chin asked. Gua nodded solemnly. Yes, it's authentic laut and pickled cabbage beef noodles. I have an uncle who went there to eat their noodles. The boss has a scarred face and looks unfathomable. Wang Ling. Then in addition to Tan Qian, the second person Wang Ling heard about was Tang Yuning. Back then, this vagabond singer, who couldn't even eat 3 meals a day, had quickly become famous because Wang Ling had given him a song. Come to think of it, Tang Yuning was also connected to the beef noodle shop's Boss Tan. Before Tang Yuning had made a name for himself, he had been a regular at Boss Tan's midnight dining hall. This Tang Yuning is really tragic. Speaking of this person, Gua put a wry smile on his face and put his hand to his forehead. What's going on? Gua. Previously, after his song Old Boys became popular, he tried to release several original singles. But it seems that they all stole the headlines. Wang Ling. When he released his second song, The Prison Break of the Master of Shadow Stream's younger sister stole the headlines. When he released his third song, The Master of Shadow Stream's younger sister was caught and stole the headlines. After that, Shadow Stream's core stronghold was destroyed, the old devil was arrested, and the old devil was interrogated live online. Speaking up to this point, Gua couldn't help but sigh. It was his birthday yesterday. Thousands of fans came to celebrate his birthday. I thought he would definitely make the headlines. But who knew that something like Immortal Mansion would happen? Wang Ling. While the class was in the middle of a heated discussion, Old Antique stepped into the classroom at that moment. He was a full 20 minutes earlier than usual, and even took up the morning self-study period. The monthly exam was just around the corner, and it was a very important one. It was a joint exam for multiple schools, and everyone would use the same exam paper to ensure that the students could accurately find their ranking in the entire district. It wasn't enough to be king in one's own district. Only by being king in the district, or even the whole city, could one be considered domineering. The teacher who prepared the joint exam papers this time is the district's history teacher, Teacher Ji Zhongkue. Old Antique raised his head, a rare look of seriousness on his face. When they heard this name, a lot of people in class couldn't help sucking in cold breaths. They were all too familiar with this name, because this was the most brutal and inhumane teacher and researcher in Peiyuan District. Every year, the freshmen in senior grade 1 could hear their seniors in senior grade 2 and senior grade 3 grumbling about this person. When Wang Ling had first started school, he had heard clan leader Yu in senior grade 3 mention rumors about this teacher. Of the 3,000 freshmen who had taken part in last year's 6th school joint exam, 90% had failed in the end. Even the best students in the elite class had achieved was only 70 points. So although the exact number of schools participating in this joint exam hadn't been officially confirmed, it was a challenge for both the students and the teacher to have such a brutal teacher prepare the exam papers. Because of this, Old Antique took advantage of the morning self-study period to enter the classroom early to announce the bad news. His expression was a little solemn, but he didn't lose his usual self-confidence. Teacher G might be brutal, but Old Antique was still very confident in his teaching. In last year's 6th school joint exam, the teacher in charge of the elite class hadn't been Old Antique, so the result had been very tragic. But this year it was a battle to turn things around. Old Antique cleared his throat and looked at everyone. I studied Teacher G's exam papers last night. Not only did his exam paper contain hard historical concepts, it also included a lot of extracurricular knowledge, as well as historical knowledge derived from recent hot topics. So it might be hard for a lot of people to accept, given the recent hotly debated Immortal Mansion incident. Now let me tell you about the gossip of the dark forces. Wang Ling. Chapter 316. The concept of dark cultivation forces had actually only been put forward in the last few decades, and formed a clear dividing line with the light forces, which had clear qualifications to run schools. The light forces included both official and private cultivation schools, as well as various rogue cultivator sects which secular itinerant cultivators could freely choose from. To put it simply, the dark forces were blacklisted organizations which didn't have their qualifications recognized by the state, and which gathered rogue cultivators illegally to run schools for profit. It was like those black-hearted spicy strips workshops on the market that didn't have a food supervision certificate. Old Antique explained this historical concept from the dais. In everyone's eyes, the dark forces are a place where a bunch of vicious people gather. But you can't generalize. There are good and evil dark forces as well. There are even some 100-year-old sects which were blacklisted because their sect elders were in seclusion and couldn't apply for qualification certification in time. In recent years, a lot of dark cultivation forces have obtained qualification certification through formal channels. Everyone immediately understood. To put it bluntly, this was the difference between getting a certificate and not getting one. After all, the spirit energy information era was no longer the era when hundreds of schools of thought contended and immortals fought each other. Everything was governed by laws and regulations. If you wanted to survive in the modern cultivation world, you had to abide by the rules. Wang Ling deeply agreed with this point. The reason why he had decided to wipe out Immortal Mansion was because it didn't abide by the rules. Not only did it disturb his life, the most important thing was that it also seriously affected his studies. In this day and age, can you still let people do their homework in peace? But as Old Antique had said, the dark forces weren't a gathering place for crafty villains. There were some dark forces whose sect elders were in seclusion all year round. If they couldn't get a certificate right away, they would be directly blacklisted. Reliance High School was an example of what he was seeing. Everyone knew that the headmaster of Reliance High School, Patriarch Reliance, was a seclusion maniac. If it hadn't been for several elders of Reliance High School personally dragging this old sect leader out of seclusion back, then to get a certificate, the school would have been directly demolished. Speaking up to this point, Old Antique's eyes flashed slightly. Based on teacher Ji Zhongkui's previous research papers, I'm guessing that he'll definitely write about the history of the dark forces. This teacher doesn't like to test people on concepts, but just in case, I'll put together a chronology of all the famous dark forces in history for everyone to remember. Teacher, what are the famous dark forces in history? Someone couldn't help but stand up and raise his hand to ask. I was just about to say it. Don't worry. Old Antique waved his hand and motioned for the man to sit down. Next, I'll tell you about some of the most famous dark forces in history, which are likely to be teacher Ji Zhongkui's test site this time. Hearing this, all the students in the class took out their notebooks. Seeing that Wang Ling wasn't moving, Dopigua hurriedly nudged him. What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and write it down. Wang Ling. For knowledge like this, as long as he had the heart to remember it, he would be able to remember it after listening to it once. So he didn't need a notebook at all. Of course, Master of Dopey's reminder was out of the goodness of his heart. Wang Ling swept his gaze over the class and realized that most of them had taken out their notebooks. so he could only take out his own and make a few symbolic notes. Otherwise, he would really look a little weird. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. Nowadays, it was hard to be a man, to be a top student who did everything possible to get the average grades in class. So sometimes, when he saw some people in class who slept and played games all day and were good at studying, maybe they really weren't studying behind the scenes, but purely because of their IQ, they had probably already occupied the high ground. Old Antique was the best at predicting test questions, and everyone in class had always firmly believed in this. He was a living human predictor. A few years ago, because Old Antique's predictions had been too accurate, the District Education Commission had inspected his work for half a year, suspecting that he had leaked test questions in the course of his teaching. However, as the #1 history teacher at number 60 high school, the Education Commission hadn't been able to find anything in the end in the face of hard power. With his hands clasped behind his back, Old Antique saw that everyone had taken out their notebooks, then cleared his throat and said, "After all, the famous dark forces in history should start with the Flying Talisman Gang. Back then, when this dark force first started, there was only one person, and he started by peddling fake talismans. He specifically picked relatives and friends to develop as agents and underlings. After selling 100 flying talismans, he could be promoted to a bronze agent, 1,000 to a silver agent, and 10,000 to a gold agent later on. The gang grew to more than 1 million people. And then, later, all the members of the gang were caught within 3 days, because the talismans they sold were all fake, and they weren't particularly strong themselves. It didn't take much effort to clean them up. Then, the Flying Talisman Gang was labeled as the Waste Talisman Gang," said Old Antique. Everyone. In terms of the scale of development, the Flying Talisman Gang has the largest number of members in the history of the Dark Forces. In terms of hard power, Immortal Mansion should currently be #1. But before Immortal Mansion appeared, there was another major dark force that had to attract attention. I wonder if any of you have heard of Cheongchi sect. When he said this, Old Antique's expression abruptly changed subtly, but it only took a split second for him to return to normal. Wang Ling took in this scene. This is a sect formed by a group of top gluttons. Anyone who joins the gang has to eat 50 jin of food in one go to pass. Everyone, Old Antique said unhurriedly. Back then, when Cheongchi sect was at its peak, its disciples spontaneously formed groups to develop local forces and look for local delicacies. They traveled all over the country to hunt spirit beasts and eat wild game. This directly led to the extinction of 17 kinds of spirit beasts. Holy shit! 17 kinds of spirit beasts were eaten alive? There were cries of surprise in the class. Even Wang Ling had an incredulous expression on his face. To be honest, the history of most of these dark forces was actually rather dark, and they actually weren't in the textbooks. If Old Antique hadn't mentioned it, Wang Ling wouldn't have known about such a strange thing. Now that he thought about it carefully, it was no wonder that silver unicorns hated humans to the bone. If they ran into a dark force like Cheongchi sect, just the thought of it was a pain in the ass. Since they were talking about Cheongchi sect, Old Antique naturally had to mention the sect leader, which was also something that teacher Ji Chongkui might want to test on. Chapter 317. Taoist Taoye's deeds had in fact been passed down in the cultivation circle of the older generation. However, because Taoist Taotai was really too ugly, those who had seen his true face would feel sick just thinking about it, while those who had never seen his true face wouldn't even be able to eat after hearing a description. Hence, the name was taboo in the cultivation circle of the older generation, and people no longer mentioned it. Reputation was something that had to be passed down by word of mouth. Since no one mentioned it, it was only natural that people would forget about it. Thus, students of Wang Ling's age had no idea at all that such a person existed in history. "Teacher, how ugly on earth is Taoist Taotai?" Someone raised a hand to ask. Old Antique gave the class a general overview of Taoist Taotai, and in the end, everyone's focus was on his appearance. Everyone had seen ugly people before, but they were actually quite curious about how ugly they really were. In Old Antique's words, Taoist Taotai was so ugly that he looked like a Taotai and had a huge appetite, which was why other people had given him this nickname. However, Old Antique didn't mention a detailed description of Taoye's appearance. Hearing the question, Old Antique frowned slightly and then smiled bitterly. You guys, can you stop paying so much attention to other people's appearances? You should pay more attention to the beauty of their hearts. Furthermore, Taoist Taotai wasn't born ugly, but because he cultivated the wrong cultivation art. No matter how much plastic surgery or how much elixirs he uses, he'll revert to his original appearance in a quarter of an hour. Everyone suddenly understood why Taoist Taotai hadn't gone for plastic surgery. It turned out that he was so ugly that even plastic surgery couldn't save him. Of course, apart from being the head of Cheongchi sect, Taoist Taotai is also the person who established the international ranking list of killers, and is its guardian, said Old Antique. Isn't the legendary gorgeous itinerant the guardian? Dopey Guo was greatly astonished when he heard this, because this was completely different from what he had heard from his uncle. Old Antique had an enigmatic smile on his face. In fact, there are two ranking guardians. The gorgeous itinerant that classmate Hirogua mentioned is also one of them. Back then, gorgeous itinerant and Taoist Taotai had established the list guardian envoys together. But not long after that, the two of them had fallen out and left the cultivation world, and Cheongchi sect had disbanded on the spot. Currently, the ranking protector of the killer list is managed by Killer Taoist, who is ranked first. Disband on the spot. The students could not help but twitch the corners of their mouths. Sure enough, in this world, only gluttons could come and go at one's beck and call. It was no wonder that there was no news related to Cheongchi sect on the internet. It turned out that this dark force was disbanded before it could be suppressed. What's the reason for the rupture? Someone asked curiously. Old Antique took a breath and said slowly, according to rumor, it was because gorgeous itinerant made a mistake during a mission. No one knew the exact reason. All we know is that after that, the two of them fell out and went their separate ways. Furthermore, Taoist Taotai swore that he would definitely look for gorgeous itinerant for an explanation. Everyone was a little disappointed at this answer. Even Old Antique didn't know about this. If he didn't know, then no matter how much they looked it up, no one would find out. But compared with the others, Feather Lin was very excited. Teacher, gorgeous itinerant, why is he called gorgeous itinerant? Is it because he's very perverted? Old Antique. It's clearly because he's too handsome, alright. Dopey Guo explained on Old Antique's behalf. Although he hadn't heard about Taoist Taoye's exploits from his uncle, he had heard about gorgeous itinerant. Dopey Guo. As far as I know, gorgeous itinerant is peerless in his generation. Anyone who sees his face will be stunned. He has the reputation of being the most handsome man in the cultivation world. Is he that handsome? The girls in the class were in an uproar. Take Senior Immortal Toya, the chief instructor of our military training last time, for example. If Senior Immortal Toya's looks were ranked in the top 20 in the cultivation circle, he would definitely be ranked in the top 10. But he definitely wouldn't be number 1. Gorgeous itinerant's beauty was publicly acknowledged in the cultivation circle back then. I remember there's a ranking on the internet, you can check it out. Dopey Guo said. My uncle told me that a female cultivator took one look at gorgeous itinerant, and because he was too handsome, her chi and blood directly flowed backward to the top of her head. I heard that she hasn't woken up to this day. Is it that bad? Old Antique smiled slightly. What classmate Guo said is true, I've also heard about it. Hearing this, Feather Lin became more and more curious about gorgeous itinerant, and her heart itched like a little claw scratching at it. It would be great if I could see gorgeous itinerant with my own eyes. Perhaps everyone will have a chance to see him in the future. On the dais, Old Antique rubbed his belly and laughed. Teacher was also in his prime when he was young. As soon as he said this, the whole class sank into silence. Old Antique wanted to cry but had no tears to shed. Is there actually no one who agrees? This teacher is very hurt. After school that day, the 3 class representatives, Dopey Guo, Super Chun and Lotus Sun, got together and seemed to be discussing something. Wang Ling narrowed his eyes in their direction, and only then did he realize that there was a little peanut among them. "Don't you think old antique looks a little strange today?" Superchin asked. That's right. Very strange." Dopigua folded his arms and stared at the others. In the past, old antique never cared too much about his appearance. After class this time, guess what I saw when I passed by the toilet? "What did you see?" asked Lotus Sunday. "I saw old antique actually looking at himself in the mirror in the toilet." "Holy shit. There's such a thing?" The others were stupefied. This indeed sounded a little strange, and even Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh in his heart when he heard it. Given old antique's normal behavior, if he had the time to look in the mirror, he would definitely save it to eat a few more packets of spicy strips. "Everyone loves beauty," Lotus Sun sighed, and then said seriously, "I also want to remind everyone that you'd better be careful after school this month." "Why?" Chapter 318. It was June 29th on Thursday in the 10th week of the semester. At 3 o'clock in the morning, something big happened on a night market street in Shanghai City. According to eyewitnesses, a student in a school uniform had been walking down the street like a zombie. Halfway down the street, his body had immediately burst into flames, and he had started to spit fire wildly in all directions. The roaring flames had engulfed the entire street, and the entire night market street had been burnt to a crisp. Even the zebra crossing on the ground had been directly roasted away. Thick smoke billowed all around, making it look like a scene out of a movie. People from the Cultivation fire department had immediately set up a barrier to stop the fire from spreading. But by the time they had taken care of everything, it was already too late. The fire had been too terrifying, and there was no way to save the night market street. Fortunately, at 3 o'clock in the morning, almost all the merchants on the street had already closed up, and no one had been injured. In the entire incident, a total of 4 people had suffered minor burns and gas poisoning at the same time. It was reported that these 4 people had come out in the middle of the night to buy supper, and had been unjustly implicated. So the moral of this story was that you should sleep well in the middle of the night. Staying up late and eating supper was bad for your health. As for how the incident would be handled, a lot of people could actually guess. The mayor of this district would definitely be removed from office, and the Shanghai city government would have to bear the responsibility for the medical expenses of the other 4 people, as well as the losses suffered by the nearby merchants. In some sense, this incident was no less than a terrorist attack. As the instigator of this terrorist attack, the student who had spat fire had died. According to the eyewitness accounts of the 4 people who had bought supper, the student had been knocked out by a black shadow when he had spewed fire, and had been taken away along with him. Thus, this incident had become the new topic of discussion during the morning self-study period in class that morning. Superchin frowned and crossed his arms with a solemn expression. "I heard that this was the work of Shuego sect, the new dark force that has risen up recently. A lot of students who have been targeted by them have been forced to eat their products on their way home from school, and then lost contact with their families and schools." Someone suddenly thought of Feng Xing. Student Feng Xing from class 2 seems to have taken a week off. Could it have something to do with Shuego sect? Shuego sect only came out in the last 2 days, and student Feng Xing's parents personally called the school to explain the situation. That shouldn't be the reason. Little Peanut shook his head. He was very sure of this. "When I handed in my homework 2 days ago, I heard Class 2's teacher in charge, Meng Kaming, and Teacher Pan talk about it in the office. There's no way it's wrong." Wang Ling couldn't help laughing in his heart. Given Feng Xing's ability, if this group of people targeted him, they definitely wouldn't have a good time. Feng Xing was now still recuperating on Immortal Toya's Chrysanthemum Island. Wang Ming had told him that he didn't have to pay special attention to that strange substance suppressing his strength. It would break down on its own in a few days, and Feng Xing would naturally wake up then. To be honest, Wang Ling had been wary of Feng Xing when he had first met him. After all, he hadn't been clear about Feng Xing's background at the time, and hadn't bothered to find out. After the Immortal Mansion incident this time, Wang Ling's biggest gain was that he had thoroughly understood Feng Xing's identity, which made him feel much more at ease. While they were thinking, Dopigwa suddenly changed the topic. Did you guys see the video that went out this morning? What? There's even a video? It seems a reckless friend filmed it. A student in a school uniform turned into a man on fire, and then spewed fire everywhere. Dopigwa answered truthfully. What kind of evil art does he cultivate? Is it possible that he's a criminal who deliberately disguised himself in a school uniform to cause a riot or something? Probably not. Dopigwa shook his head and said, I've seen the video. When this student spewed fire, he was still roaring, and looked like he had gone mad. Also, my uncle told me that the instant the student spewed fire, the temperature was over 10,000 degrees. Wang Ling frowned. An ordinary fireball from an expert at the peak late soul formation stage was already over 10,000 degrees. But if this person was really just a student, then this kind of temperature was a little too exaggerated. This reminded Wang Ling of Mo Immortal Castle's Mo Immortal Water incident. However, Wang Ling had bumped into Mo Immortal Castle's Mo Immortal Water incident while it was still in the experimental stage, and he had directly killed the whole plan in the cradle. The Shuego sect this time was similar to the mutation potion that Mo Immortal Castle had produced back then. The only difference was that most of the mutation potions that Mo Immortal Castle had produced back then had been failures. And this time, Shuego sect had obviously come prepared. For a foundation establishment student to be able to create destructive power comparable to that of a soul formation cultivator in a short period of time, whether it was elixirs or potions, they had definitely been planning it for a long time. This was a conspiracy that had been plotted for a long time. Of course, there were some things that Wang Ling didn't understand. For example, the name of this new dark force. Of all things, it had to be called Shuego sect. Every time he muttered this name in his heart, Wang Ling felt like his time and life were being stolen bit by bit. It could be said that Shuego sect, a brand new dark cultivation force, was in the limelight. The Shanghai city government had requested that all available police resources be mobilized to dismantle this dark force in the shortest possible time. But unfortunately, Shuego sect hadn't left behind any clues since the incident. It was really too difficult for the police to investigate a case with no clues at all. In the office of the General Administration of 100 schools in Shanghai City, Ajwa scratched his head, feeling like his head was as big as 4 mountains. He still hadn't finished dealing with Immortal Mansion, and the interrogation of Master of Immortal Mansion, Cheng Yu, hadn't been completed. In the end, this Shuego sect had suddenly popped up. Moreover, the most annoying thing was that this dark force just had to pick on the students. Currently, 12 students from 7 different high schools had gone missing in Shanghai City. The fire this morning had been caused by a missing grade 1 student from God Vision High School. If he didn't handle this matter properly, no matter how good his relationship with Secretary Dakong was, the higher-ups would definitely vent their anger on him. While he was frowning, his phone rang. Seeing that it was the deputy director's office, he immediately picked it up. How is it? Is there any new development? Reporting to the General Administration, based on the information we've gathered on the 12 missing students, we haven't found anything in common with them. Ajwa frowned. Is this a random crime? The deputy director. Not really. If I had to say, these students are pretty good looking. Chapter 319. After that, the deputy director came to Ajwa's office with the report. This young man was called Zhong Lang, and was a rather honest young man. He had joined the general administration of 100 schools at the same time as Ajwa. It wasn't long before Ajwa became deputy director, and Zhong Lang became the office director, who had been Ajwa's partner at that time. Now that Ajwa had been promoted, Zhong Lang naturally became the deputy director. Leader, take a look. After hanging up the phone, Zhong Lang rushed to Ajwa's office with the report in hand. It was a summary report on the 12 students, and the details included their great-grandfathers, as well as their daily habits and preferences. Just as Zhong Lang had said, There were males and females among the 12 missing students. Their hobbies were all different. There was nothing in common at all. However, these 12 students were all very good-looking, and they were all natural. There were also photos of them when they were young for comparison. These students had been very beautiful since they were young. Ajwa took a deep breath. That should be it. I'm guessing that the mastermind behind Shuego sect hates good-looking students. So he specifically targets good-looking ones. What should we do now? Secretary Dakong wants us to resolve this matter as soon as possible. Ajwa stretched out his hand and pulled out a student's report. Do you know this Xiao Yinqing? Back then, he was the most prestigious young disciple in the Xiao clan's outer sect. Ajwa remembered this person very clearly, because he had been eliminated by Wang Ling at the start of the survival contest, during the military training exercise for the 6 schools. Ajwa sighed. This group of people even dared to touch a member of the Xiao clan. How deranged are they? If this matter isn't resolved quickly, I'm afraid Xiao clan leader will blow up our general administration of 100 schools. Ajwa sighed. Zhonglang. Immediately draft a document in the name of our general administration of 100 schools and request that all the major schools in Songhai City explain the situation in detail to the parents of the students. Until there's no conclusion to this matter, from today on, the parents will be responsible for picking up their children to and from school. Zhonglang. What if a parent refuses? Ajwa. Then have this family do a paternity test as soon as possible. Zhonglang. Why? Ajwa. He definitely isn't my biological son. Zhonglang. Ajwa's notice was sent out at 11 in the morning and spread throughout the whole of Songhai City. Then, all the teachers frantically made phone calls to make sure that every student's parent had been contacted. Because there were students from year 1 to year 3 among the students who were arrested, the school that received the notice organized almost all the teachers to participate in the call. For some students whose parents could not come to school, the school even arranged for security guards or teachers to escort the students home. In short, it was necessary to carry out comprehensive protection. This was a rather stupid method, but it was also a relatively safe one. Shuego sect hadn't left any clues, so it would be good if they could find some clues while parents were taking their children to and from school. After Ajwa sent out this notice, it could be said that all the parents in the city had been mobilized, which was more awesome than a military commander. Then, this matter became the new topic of discussion among the students that afternoon. The sect leaders of the major sects in the cultivation world issued announcements one after another, saying that they would personally pick up their children to and from school. Usually, even if it was a parent-teacher conference, these sect leaders wouldn't necessarily show up in person. This scene was quite rare in the eyes of a lot of students. Most of them might have a good relationship with a certain classmate at school, but they didn't know what that person's family background was like. This incident exposed a lot of people's hidden identities. The whole school seemed to be bustling with activity because of this incident. There was no need to doubt Lotus Sun's background. This young miss had been the center of attention since the start of the semester. Outside number 60 high school, there were several nearby security teams arranged by Huagua Water Curtain Group to ensure her safety in all aspects. After the first afternoon class, Wang Ling heard a lot of gossip from Dopigua. Have you heard? There are quite a few big shots in the normal class. Dopigua spoke in a low voice, looking very mysterious. These people usually hide themselves too well. If this matter hadn't blown up, no one would know about their family background. Someone laughed. You can't say that. Super Chun shook his head. It's because their family background isn't simple that they're hiding it. With their family background, they were only able to get into a regular class in a regular high school. It's actually quite shameful to say it. I wouldn't have the face to say it. That's true. In the regular classes, from class 1 to class 3, there are quite a few people who are the children of sect leaders. In particular, there's one called Jiang Bai, whose father is the sect leader of Kitchen Knife Sect. Kitchen Knife Sect, what's that? It's a sect that started with gourmet food, and is known as the New East Culinary Academy of the Cultivation world. Dopigua explained. I just called an uncle of mine who works in kitchen knife sect to confirm his background. There's no mistake. You actually have an uncle who works in kitchen knife sect. Don't look down on kitchen knife sect. It offers great benefits. In addition to a 5th-class black iron kitchen knife, new disciples can also learn the sect's-exclusive secret technique, the cat dismembering knife technique, for free. They get 20 days of annual leave each year and double pay at the end of the year. If new disciples can pass the special chef assessment, they can directly be promoted to an inner sect elder. Dopigwa said. Also, sects are ranked according to heaven, earth, black, and yellow. Jiangbai's dad's kitchen knife sect is ranked in the top 5 of the black sections. It has branches in several cities. Several of the students in grade 1, class 3 were startled when they heard this. There were hundreds of thousands of light force sects in Huaxiao Nation alone, and there were tens of thousands of them. To be able to rank in the top 5 of these tens of thousands of black sects, one could already see how powerful Jiangbai's dad's kitchen knife sect was. So when they heard this, a lot of people were startled. Jiangbai's family background is so powerful, why are his grades so bad? Dopigwa spread his hands. So it turns out that family background has nothing to do with grades. Old Zhang's dad controls kitchen knife sect, and he's so busy all day that he naturally doesn't have the time to care about Jiangbai's studies. If it wasn't for this new Shuego sect's aggressive attitude, the head of kitchen knife sect might not have taken action. Dopigwa sighed. So every time Jiangbai doesn't do well in exams, his teacher in charge always tells him that if he doesn't study hard, he'll have to go back and inherit the sect. Everyone. Chapter 320. Facts had proven that people had a deep fear of the unknown. In Wang Ling's opinion, the reason why the Shuego sect incident had garnered so much attention was entirely because, based on the clues gathered by the various cultivation police stations in Songhai City, everyone had pitifully little understanding of this unknown dark force that had suddenly appeared out of thin air. The most important reason was that there was still no news of the 12 missing students. Thus, considering that Shuego sect was coming at them aggressively this time, and that the current situation was rather grim, a lot of parents had even set up a temporary parents' committee to protect the flowers of the motherland. Parents of college students would form an escort team to be responsible for taking students to and from school during this period. This was originally a good starting point. Until in the afternoon, a group of screenshots was posted on WeChat Moments by the students. Did everyone see the screenshot of my moments? Dopigwa suddenly said in class after class. What screenshot? I'll go take a look. Several people secretly took out their phones from under their desks. When they saw what Dopigwa had posted on his moments, their faces twitched violently. Wang Ling narrowed his eyes and looked directly through them. He was too lazy to use his wristwatch, and directly saw the screenshots that Super Chun was looking at from a distance. The screenshot was a screenshot of a few parents from other schools running for the position of the chairman of the parent committee in the parent group chat. The first screenshot, number 7 Tang Jichuan's mother. Hello everyone, I'm number 7 Tang Jichuan's mother. He was currently working at the internationally renowned Cultivation restaurant Kakara Restaurant as the company's HRD, which was actually the restaurant's head butler. Previously, he had been the top chef of a restaurant for 30 years. He was an expert in cooking shredded kelp stewed with grave soil and weeds, as well as braised spirit pork knuckle and soy sauce. My braised pork knuckle and soy sauce is the restaurant's star dish. I even gave it a nice name, Talking Pork Knuckle. Parents in the group, if you have time in the future, you are welcome to try it for free. Cough cough. After saying so much, I just want to prove it. My interpersonal skills are not a problem, and I have excellent leadership skills. I'm honored to represent our little Tang Tang, to run for the position of chairman of the parents' committee. I hope all the parents will vote for me. Everyone. This screenshot alone was enough to stun Wang Ling. The second screenshot. Number 26 Shen Huxing's father. I'm number 26 Shen Huxing's father. I'm also registered to run for the chairman of the family committee. The child's mother and I are both doctoral students at Greenox University in Greenox Treasure Town. Blackox Treasure Town's Blackox University is the former residence of Old Devil Han. The university was built by Old Devil Han's only disciple Han Mimi. I don't think I need to explain the university's origins. Currently, my child's mother and I have opened an education chain in Shanghai City, Jinrui Education. It's really hard to make 1 or 2 billion a month. I really want to do something within my power for the children. If all the parents are willing to vote for me, I'll give them a 10% discount when they come to my organization for tutoring. Everyone. Wang Ling. Then the third screenshot. Number 17 Liang Huihuan's mother. Teachers and parents, I'm number 17 Liang Huihuan's mother. I graduated from America's MIT Cultivation College and currently work for Shanghai City's Baida Cultivation Pictures Fund Company. His father is the CEO of this fund company. I voluntarily registered to run for the chairman of the family committee for the following reasons. 1. I served as the chairman of the family committee in my child's kindergarten, elementary school, and middle school. 2. Because of the flexibility of my work, I can be on call at any time. 3. I sincerely hope to make a modest contribution to the children. 4. Although I'm only at the late golden core stage, I have the urge to detonate my golden core to protect my child's life at any time. I hope everyone will vote for me. Crab. Everyone. Wang Ling. The last, fourth screenshot was also the most exaggerated one. Number 13 Lin Zihua's mother. Hello everyone, I'm number 13 Lin Zihua's mother. I graduated from Haofu Cultivation University as a postgraduate, and now work for Shanghai City's Chanduo Antiques Company. My personal research direction is some big data in the cultivation circle. And every day I manage billions of transactions in cultivation magic treasures and antiques. Zihua's father is the general manager of a securities company. I don't want to run for the chairman of the family committee, but I want to warn all the parents present that if your son or daughter dares to bully our Zihua, I'll have the child's father smash your family's stocks, including Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Lotus Sun. Wang Ling. Most of the time, it was the parents themselves who decided and elected the members of the family committee. The vast majority of parents came with good intentions, and these few screenshots from this afternoon were pure negative examples of parents. They circulated in the college students' WeChat moments and WeChat moments, causing people to exclaim in admiration. How shameless must one be to say something like this? In contrast, number 60 high school was a lot more harmonious and wasn't as enthusiastic about the formation of the family committee as the other high schools. That was because in the afternoon, Huaguo Water Curtain Group had sent a safety notice directly to every parent's cell phone, stating that it would do its utmost to protect the safety of all number 60 high school students. Even parents who didn't have time to take their children to and from school only needed to confirm and sign the agreement, and Huaguo Water Curtain Group would arrange for 2 golden core cultivators to escort the students to and from school. For many parents, this notice was much more important than the screenshots that had been circulating in their WeChat moments in the afternoon. Wang Ling had always felt that this was a reflection of hard power. The more powerful a person was, the more low-key they were. Thus, Wang Ling wasn't able to leave directly after school that afternoon. At noon, Teacher Pan had already called all the students' parents and asked them to send someone to pick them up from school. Teacher Pan gave each student in class a temporary number plate, and all the students waited in the school gymnasium after they received their number plates. Teachers stood guard inside and outside the gymnasium, as well as at the school gate. It wasn't until the last student had been picked up by a parent that the teachers officially got off work. The safety of the students was always the number one priority at school. Special times called for special treatment, and the teachers of number 60 high school had no complaints. Every parent also had a number which the teachers of number 60 high school had sent to them on WeChat, and they could use this number to pick up their son or daughter. This number had another important purpose, which was to confirm the parents' true identities in case criminals pretended to be parents. After the teachers at the school gate verified the information, They directly transmitted it to the broadcasting room, which then broadcast it to the gymnasium. Student number 18 of regular class 1. Your father has arrived. There's also a large group of people at the gate to pick you up from school. The announcer in the gymnasium rang out. Sighs immediately rang out in the gymnasium. The student whose number had been called stood up with a red face and buried his head in his hands as he headed for the door. For some reason he felt ashamed. Dopigua, who was sitting next to Wang Ling, couldn't help laughing when he saw the student stand up. This person is called Fan Su. His dad is from Longmin Bodyguard Agency. He's been pretty low-key in class before, but now that this has happened, everyone knows that he's the young master of Longmin Bodyguard Agency. Wang Ling. Student number 7 of regular class 2. Your father is already standing at the school gate with his little friend, kitchen knives in hand. Very quickly, the announcer rang out again. Student number 8, please come out with student number 7. A skinny teenager with a buzz cut walked out of the crowd. This was Jiang Bai, whom Dopigua had mentioned before, and whose father was the head of kitchen knife sect. After the teenager got up, the girl sitting next to him also heard the announcement and left with Jiang Bai. Wang Ling was puzzled by this scene when Dopigua laughed again. This girl is called Jiang Yan. She's in the same class as Jiang Bai. Hearing this, Super Chen couldn't help asking, are they brother and sister? Not by blood. Dopigua shook his head and explained, because Jiang Yan's father is the second uncle of the head of kitchen knife sect. Chapter 321. When Father Wang arrived at number 60 high school's gate, he was shocked by the scene at the school gate for the first time. To be honest, this scene gave Father Wang a sense of déjà vu. Back when Wang Ling had just started kindergarten, there had also been such a large crowd of parents standing outside the kindergarten gate at the end of each day. But ever since Wang Ling had started kindergarten, Father Wang had never picked him up or dropped him off again. During that period, Wang Ling had been targeted by a lot of child traffickers because of his cute looks. In the end, the entire trafficking ring had been wiped out the day Wang Ling was abducted. So at that time, Wang Ling had set a record for wiping out thousands of trafficking rings from kindergarten to primary school graduation. Both father and son of the Wang family had kept their mouths shut about this matter, and neither of them had mentioned it to anyone else. They had kept their achievements and reputation a secret. So when Father Wang came to pick Wang Ling up personally this time, he felt a faint sense of nostalgia in his heart. He hadn't planned to come at first, but this time on one hand, Teacher Pan had personally called him. On the other hand, the gate of number 60 high school was indeed a grand occasion, and a lot of parents had brought their families with them to pick up their children. Other parents had come, but he was the only one who hadn't, which was a little unusual. Pushing up his black-rimmed glasses, Father Wang walked into the crowd with his pockets in his hands. It was only after he entered the crowd that he realized that while the bowl of noodles looked messy, the parents were actually lining up. The reason why it looked messy was that some parents had brought disciples from their own sects to keep up appearances. The parents were lining up inside while the disciples were on the periphery, so it looked messy. Looking at the long line in front of him, Father Wang sighed in his heart. Apart from when he would calm down and line up at the anime convention every year, he had never suffered such grievances before. Because the teachers at the school gate had to verify the identities of the parents one by one before calling their numbers, the whole process was very slow. Some parents were a little impatient and frowned deeply. Many of the parents in line were reputable figures, and they definitely had private matters to attend to, but none of them cursed or urged them to hurry up because they were impatient. This was often the time when character was on the line. In order to ensure that the students could go home safely, the school teachers had delayed getting off work and stayed at school to work overtime. At this point, what else could they say? What other complaints could there be? Father Wang stood silently at the end of the line, but didn't feel bored. Writing came from life. Sometimes it was good to collect material for characters. This could be considered an occupational disease. Father Wang's realm wasn't high, and he was only at the early qi condensation stage. But even so, he was still able to discern the strength of an aura from its body language. For example, Father Wang felt that this middle-aged man standing in front of him wasn't simple at all. This person looked very boorish, and he had a beautiful beard on his face. He wore ancient clothes, and he walked with his head held high and his chest puffed out. There were several kitchen knives on his waist, and it was obvious that he was a sect master. Father Wang stepped forward and patted the man on the shoulder. "Brother, you're here to pick up the kid too?" As he spoke, Father Wang noticed a number of youngsters dressed in similar clothes as the male lead staring at him, and once again confirmed this man's identity in his heart. The middle-aged man hadn't expected someone to take the initiative to talk to him. He was dazed for a moment before he turned his head to look at Father Wang and casually replied, Father Wang wasn't tall. He didn't even reach the man's shoulder, and even when he spoke, he had to raise his head slightly. There was a sharp contrast between the two men's body shapes. "Father Wang, is your son in the regular class or the elite class?" The middle-aged man's face instantly darkened. Wasn't this just rubbing it in? What he was most afraid of was someone asking this question. He was the Grand Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect, but his son had actually only entered the regular class. If word got out, wouldn't he become a laughingstock? Thus, this Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect chose to keep silent at that moment. He thought that as long as he didn't answer, this person probably wouldn't ask any more questions, right? Unfortunately, the person he was facing was Father Wang. It could only be said that Father Wang was in the end Father Wang. As a veteran web writer, he fully displayed his indomitable spirit when it came to the problems he encountered when collecting material. "Father Wang, brother? Why aren't you saying anything?" Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect. Father Wang patted the man on the shoulder. "It's fine, we're all parents. In any case, we're all queuing up now. As for your child's education, we can actually talk about it. My child just entered school this year and didn't do well in the entrance exam." "Didn't do well?" The Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect was instantly delighted. "Your son also didn't do well and entered the regular class?" Father Wang shook his head. "No, the elite class." The Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect simply wanted to roar in his heart. "Then why did you say that?" "Father Wang, my son is more introverted. I thought that if he entered the elite class with a bunch of outstanding children, he might develop a sense of inferiority over time. So I originally wanted him to go to a regular or remedial class." Speaking up to this point, Father Wang sighed. "Who knew this guy didn't do well? I just wanted him to be a bad student." Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect. This was F*** King not doing well? Shouldn't it be extraordinary performance? Nowadays, which parent didn't want their child to become a dragon or a phoenix? How could there be someone who wanted their child to become a bad student? At that moment, the Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect was deeply aware that he had encountered a very strange parent, and he instantly didn't want to say anything. If he kept talking to this person, he would just be making things difficult for himself. But just as the middle-aged man turned his head, he saw out of the corner of his eye that Father Wang had taken out a small notebook and a pen, as if he was writing something down. There was no way that the Grand Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect wouldn't have this little bit of eyesight. He narrowed his eyes and clearly read the words that Father Wang had written down in the notebook. It read Material 1, Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect. A burly man with a stocky back and a bear-like waist, several kitchen knives hanging from his waist. He is often vexed because his son is admitted to a regular class. After a preliminary personality test, this person should be a proper tsundere. Reading this, the middle-aged man's lips twitched fiercely, and he was a little angry. Who are you?" Father Wang calmly pushed up his black-rimmed glasses. "Sorry, brother, I'm gathering material. As a web writer, this is my job." Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect. As he spoke, Father Wang took out a black cigar from his pocket and put it in his mouth. Then, he stared calmly at the middle-aged man in front of him. "Brother, do you have a fire? Lend me a light." The middle-aged man was shaking with anger at first, but the moment he saw the cigar, he instantly calmed down. This was a national treasure. Only people at that level could draw it. The middle-aged man stared at Father Wang, his face pale with shock. Who on earth was this person? Chapter 322. Father Wang's black cigar had a special origin, and people who hadn't seen the market would never be able to recognize it. But the head of kitchen knife sect was different. Jiang Haifu was only at the late golden core stage, and because his family had been very poor when he was a child, he couldn't be considered a graduate of a famous school. But when all was said and done, he was the head of a sect who had built it. All these years, he had traveled all over the country to collect all kinds of ingredients for delicacies. He could smell what kind of treasure had been added to this cigar with his nose. While Father Wang was spewing venomous words on the side, Jiang Haifu's subordinates around him couldn't bear it anymore. If it weren't for the fact that there were other parents and teachers here who were concerned about kitchen knife sect's reputation, they would have already rushed over and carried Father Wang away. But at the same time, when they saw Jiang Haifu's shocked expression, they were also dumbfounded. They rarely saw their sect leader show such an expression. Jiang Haifu had looked like he couldn't vent his anger earlier, but when he saw that black cigar, he immediately froze like a statue. After a full minute or so, Jiang Haifu came back to his senses and took out a lighter to light the cigar for Father Wang. He asked weakly, "Brother, this cigar is pretty good. Where did you buy it?" Jiang Haifu's tone was completely different from the impatient one before. When he saw Father Wang take out this black cigar, Jiang Haifu felt like he had suffered a great deal in front of Father Wang. "Oh, a fan gave it to me," Father Wang said lightly as he took a puff on the cigar and blew out a round smoke ring. The corner of Jiang Haifu's mouth twitched fiercely. "Oh, a gift? What kind of fan could give this kind of national treasure cigar as a gift?" He stared straight at the cigar in Father Wang's hand with an envious expression on his face. It was hard for anyone below the golden core stage to understand the effect of this cigar. Even the smoke it exhaled didn't choke you at all, and instead had the indescribable fragrance of a high-grade perfume. Especially in the process of closed-door cultivation, if one could smoke such a cigar every day, it would simply be half the effort and twice the result. Moreover, it would also have the effect of preventing one from going berserk. There was a saying that a cigarette after an affair was better than a living immortal. This kind of national treasure cigar could only be found by luck. Father Wang stared at Jiang Haifu and understood from the look in his eyes. He smiled slightly. "I only brought one with me today. If you want some, I'll send you some later. That fan of mine would send me some every 6 months." Jiang Haifu was stunned at first, then he smiled like a peach blossom. "How can I do that? We're all parents, don't stand on ceremony. Your son and my son are fellow schoolmates, so we can take care of each other at school in the future." Father Wang narrowed his eyes and smiled. "My son is called Wang Ling, Ling as in command. He's very introverted, and probably doesn't have many friends in other classes." Jiang Haifu nodded. "That's great. Our family actually runs a restaurant. In the future, if you have time, Brother Wang, please come to my place." The kitchen knife sect disciples on the side were dumbfounded. How long had it been? They were already calling each other brothers. Sometimes, if a girl's way of establishing a friendship was a bag, then a man's way of establishing a friendship might be a cigarette or a glass of wine. As they spoke, it was almost their turn in the line, and the teacher standing at the school gate very seriously verified their identities. Father Wang stood at the school gate and waited for Wang Ling to come out of the gym. Standing next to Jiang Haifu, Father Wang pointed at Wang Ling from a distance. "Do you see that handsome dead fish eyes in front? That's my Wang Ling." The corner of Jiang Haifu's mouth twitched again. Jiang Haifu could see that Father Wang's venomous tongue was completely natural and untainted. When it came to venomous words, he wouldn't even let his own son off. What did he mean by handsome dead fish eyes? Was there anyone who talked bad about their own son like that? Jiang Bai and Jiang Yen came out first and walked in front of Wang Ling, seeing that Father Wang had introduced Wang Ling. Jiang Haifu also started to introduce his son. "The one in front wearing a white shirt under the school uniform is my son, Jiang Bai. The girl next to him is my second brother's daughter, Jiang Yan. Father Wang sked. So thin. Jiang Haifu sighed. My son's more of a homebody, and usually doesn't eat well. Brother Wang, don't judge me by my burly appearance. I don't believe my son is so thin. He's completely unlike me. He doesn't have the slightest bit of my masculine genes. Father Wang couldn't help laughing. Sometimes, genes really can't be explained clearly by science. Father Wang felt that he had the most right to speak on this matter. He and Mother Wang weren't very talented, but they had given birth to Wang Ling. After picking up Jiang Bai, Jiang Haifu gave Father Wang a business card before he left. Father Wang took it and looked at it carefully, and was surprised to discover that Kakaro Restaurant was actually one of Jiang Haifu's businesses under Kitchen Knife Sect. When old man Wang was young, he had worked at Kakaro Restaurant for a while. At first, he had entered as a chef, and later as a senior gourmet consultant for a while. So this Kakaro Restaurant is your family's business? Father Wang raised his eyebrows. It should be our Kitchen Knife Sect's brand. It's the foundation of our Kitchen Knife Sect. All of our business chains revolve around Kakaro Restaurant's profits. Jiang Haifu couldn't help laughing. Actually, I'm lucky. When I was young, I received pointers from an expert, who gave me a recipe. Otherwise, I'm afraid this Kakaro Restaurant wouldn't have been able to do business. And so, Father Wang and Jiang Haifu, the head of Kitchen Knife Sect, got to know each other. When Wang Ling and Jiang Bai came out of the gym, both of them had blank expressions on their faces. It turned out that sometimes the friendship between men wasn't that complicated. To put it bluntly, it was just a matter of getting along well. After saying goodbye to Jiang Haifu and the others, Father Wang led Wang Ling to a park. The streets were now full of pedestrians, and it would be too eye-catching for Wang Ling to brazenly teleport home. Furthermore, after the Shuego sect incident, all the districts were on high alert. There was a police car parked on almost every street and patrolling officers. Father Wang sighed deeply at this scene. Ling, don't you think there's anything unusual about this? We've already sent out so many police forces, but Shuego sect actually didn't leave the slightest trace in the face of such an inescapable net. It's like seeing a ghost. Father Wang frowned as he looked at Wang Ling. In this regard, Wang Ling also felt a deep helplessness. He was actually quite surprised by Shuego sect's appearance. After all, Immortal Mansion's limelight hadn't truly died down yet. Just as the country was using the Immortal Mansion incident to launch all kinds of calls to crack down on the dark forces, there just had to be this instigator, who liked to go against the wind and commit crimes. Father Wang had wanted to analyze the incident further, but in the end, just as the father and son approached the park in front of them, they heard the faint scream of a girl up ahead. "You're not my dad. I don't want to go back with you. Who are you? Let go of me." Wang Ling's gaze focused as he looked into the distance. Chapter 323. What was he trying to do? Forcefully snatching a commoner girl to acknowledge him as her father in broad daylight? Because it was school break time, there weren't many people in the park at 4 o'clock. Although a few passers-by saw this scene, no one dared to stop it. In many people's eyes, this was just a helpless father dragging a disobedient daughter away. Furthermore, the man kept on scolding the girl for being so immature and running away from home, and how anxious he was and so on. When a lot of people heard this, they didn't want to get involved. When all was said and done, this was someone else's family matter. Why should they stick their nose into it? However, at first glance, Father Wang felt that there was something fishy about this man in the woolen hat. He couldn't put his finger on it. It was more like a sixth sense. He didn't have Wang Ling's great blood origin spell, which could directly analyze and compare the blood relationship between the two of them. But Father Wang felt that his sixth sense had always been very accurate. He just didn't think that this man in the woolen hat was the girl's father. There was a good saying. The most important thing about a family was that it was neat and tidy. This girl was dressed from head to toe in trendy brands. How could her father be a country bumpkin wearing an earthy gray woolen hat? When a person had a guilty conscience and was stared at, they would definitely feel guilty. But now, When the Wang family's two pairs of ancestral dead fish eyes stared at this man in the gray woolen hat, he almost instantly exploded. Before Father Wang could step forward and say anything, the man already couldn't help roaring. "What are you looking at? Have you never seen someone educate their daughter?" Frightened by the man's roar, the girl's eyes were already moist and filled with fear as she shook her head desperately. She realized that she actually couldn't open her mouth to speak. This was also the man's doing. When the man had grabbed the girl just now, Wang Ling had clearly seen him release some of his aura to seal off the girl's tongue. Thus, the girl could only shake her head desperately and ask Father Wang for help. No passers-by nearby dared to step forward. This was the closest and last straw to save her life. Thus, in the next moment, Father Wang decisively stepped forward and said a classic line from a movie. "Let go of that girl." The man in the woolen hat's face darkened. "Mind your own business. Otherwise you'll suffer." The man's expression and tone were very fierce. It was clear that Father Wang's bravery in coming forward didn't scare him. He didn't care about a mere qi condensation cultivator at all. The man thought he had thought it through thoroughly, and he looked Father Wang and Wang Ling up and down. A father at the qi condensation stage with a foundation establishment son, who had just finished school at the nearby high school, didn't pose any threat to him at all. Most importantly, the man was surprised to find that the young man with dead fish eyes was actually quite good-looking. His superiors had specifically instructed him to capture some good-looking students and bring them back. The young girl in his hands was one, and this young man was another. If he could bring both of them back, the organization would definitely give him a lot of points. A crafty look appeared on his face as he stared at Father Wang and chuckled. "Is this your son?" Father Wang: "Yes." The man: "Very good. But from now on, he is my son." Father Wang: After saying that, the man quickly sealed the girl's acupuncture points and pinned her to the ground. He then straightaway flicked his finger, and a burst of energy shot out from his fingertip at Wang Ling. This was a burst of energy used to seal acupuncture points. The man had cultivated it for a long time, and the organization specially trained everyone in this skill, so that there were almost no mistakes. Once the energy hit the target, the 8 extraordinary meridians would immediately be sealed. This move was especially effective against cultivators below the golden core stage. However, the situation was a little unexpected for the man. Just as the force hit the young man, the aura actually turned around and bounced back with a force that was twice as strong. It was clearly just a burst of energy used to seal acupuncture points. But at that moment, it was like a spirit bullet shooting at the man at an extremely fast speed. Before the man could say, F***K, the recoil of the aura had already pierced through his shoulder. In an instant, the man's face twitched in pain as he stared at Wang Ling in astonishment. He was caught off guard by this recoil. He couldn't even figure out how a foundation establishment high school student could fight back. In the next moment, he was already deeply aware that he had already failed his mission this time. Whether it was the girl or the young man in front of him, they could only give up. Now running away was their top priority. But very quickly, the man realized once again that he had been thinking too much. He discovered that an extremely powerful spiritual pressure had locked him in place, and all the muscles in his body had instantly stiffened. There was no way a foundation establishment high school student could have this kind of spiritual pressure. The man's face was bloodshot and full of resentment. The organization had sent so many people out, but he had never thought that he would actually be the first one to be caught. Stupid, right? Father Wang stared at him and smiled. "You'll get used to it." The man, Wang Ling, never thought that he would actually run into the breakthrough that the police had been painstakingly searching for so long. No matter what this man knew, judging from his current behavior, he definitely had something to do with Shuego's sect. After that, Wang Ling used his spiritual pressure to directly unseal the girl's acupuncture points. He deliberately hid behind Father Wang, so that the girl wouldn't be able to see his face from this angle. "Thank you, really, thank you very much." When the girl regained her mobility, her voice was still trembling a little, but it was clear from her tone that she was a lot calmer than before. She wanted to poke her head out to look at Wang Ling, but was blocked by Father Wang's figure. Which high school are you from? Why aren't you wearing your school uniform? Where are your parents? Why didn't they come to pick you up? The girl lowered her head. I'm from Prime Elevation High School. My dad was going to pick me up at first, but I didn't take it seriously, so I told him not to come and left on my own. These 2 days are a special period. Don't you know how many students have been taken away? Even if young people are in their rebellious phase, they still need to have an attitude to be willful. Father Wang sighed. He just casually lectured her, and didn't say anything else because it wasn't worth it. After all, this wasn't his daughter, and it was better for the girl's parents to educate her personally. Uncle is right, I won't do it again. It was clear that this rebellious girl had been badly frightened by what had just happened. She lowered her head in front of Father Wang, and didn't even dare breathe loudly. The feeling of being forced to be his daughter by a stranger, and being helpless and unable to defend herself, was really too unbearable. Wait a minute, I'll have my son call his friend over. He's from the general administration of 100 schools. I'll be a little more at ease if he takes you back later. Father Wang sighed as he stared at the girl. Since he had already gotten involved in this matter, he naturally had to see it through. The girl clutched the hem of her clothes with both hands. Thank you, uncle. As she spoke, Father Wang suddenly noticed that although the girl's head was lowered, she was intentionally or unintentionally glancing at Wang Ling. However, most of her line of sight was blocked by Father Wang, and she was too embarrassed to brazenly stick her head out to look. In the end, the girl could only frown. Father Wang couldn't help laughing at this scene. What are you looking at? The girl lowered her head shyly. Father Wang. Stop looking, you won't get anywhere. Chapter 324. It was June 30th on Friday in the 10th week of the semester. During the morning self-study period, Dopigwa suddenly said, Did you hear? Yesterday, a girl from Prime Elevation High School was kidnapped by people suspected of being from Shuego sect. Of course we know about it. It's all over the place. Little Peanut nodded. The girl said she was forcibly taken away on her way home from school, and the man lied that he was her father. The scariest thing was that no one stopped him. Even an upright official can't settle a family matter. A lot of people naturally didn't want to get involved when they saw that it was a family matter. If Senior Ajwa hadn't intervened in time, the girl would have been in danger. Dopigwa said, That man who was caught is the biggest breakthrough in the entire Shuego sect case. In the end, Senior Jua is still the best. A lot of people couldn't help exclaiming in admiration. There was now a saying in high school student circles. When Ajwa makes a move, you'll know whether he's right or not. After experiencing all kinds of major incidents, more and more people were becoming increasingly familiar with this name. After listening to everyone's discussion, Wang Ling lowered his head in silence. He was the one who had specially asked Ajwa to take full responsibility for what had happened yesterday. But the girl had never forgotten that Wang Ling had saved her, and had refused to agree at first. Ajwa had also spent a lot of time persuading the girl, and had used the excuse of protecting Wang Ling's privacy to convince her. Wang Ling reckoned that at this point in time, the girl was probably still cooperating with Ajwa's investigation. It hadn't been easy to find a lead on Shuego sect, and no one wanted it to go to waste. At the same time in Songhai First Prison, the interrogation of the man in the wool hat who had been arrested yesterday and was suspected to be a member of Shuego sect had officially begun. But Ajwa and Warden Liang had now run into a rather tricky problem, and that was that the suspect refused to confess to his crimes no matter what. In the interrogation room, the man was sitting in handcuffs. His spirit energy had been completely sealed off, and he was shaking his legs in boredom. He was spewing profanities, and was even shouting incessantly, "Even if you beat me to death, I won't tell you either. If you have the ability, lock me up for life. Aren't you all very capable? If you have the ability, use lynching. Fry me. Remember to flip me over. Otherwise, I'll become a fried dumpling." Outside the interrogation room, Warden Liang sighed deeply, feeling very helpless. This man hadn't admitted to any direct connection with Shuego sect at all. So even if a criminal case was initiated, the most that could happen would be a charge of attempted kidnapping. But in this case, there was no point in capturing the man. An organization like Shuego sect, which had brazenly captured 12 students without leaving any traces behind, had to have a very solid organizational plan. The man's stubbornness was completely within Warden Liang's expectations. However, what this man said could be said to have completely poked at Warden Liang's sore spot. Ever since the cultivation world entered the spirit energy information era, with the continuous improvement of laws, the set of punishments in the cultivation prison in ancient times had long been abolished. If it was 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, who would care so much? The first thing he did was a series of up, down, left, right Alibaba. No matter how stubborn he would still be able to pry open his mouth. What should we do? Director Zhua, what do you think? Warden Liang clutched his head, feeling a dull pain in his trigeminal nerve. They had already been interrogated for almost 2 hours, but this man still wouldn't even say his name. As for the ID they had found on him, it was also fake. What was even more frightening was that after they had collected the man's DNA and compared it with the cultivation police's system, they actually couldn't find any information. This guy was a genuine unregistered resident. To put it bluntly, this was the reason why this man was so fearless. He knew very well that as long as he didn't confess, there was absolutely no way they would be able to find anything on him. I remember there's a spell for forcibly intervening and extracting memories. Ajwa said. Absolutely not. Warden Liang shook his head. This is a trick that can only be used on criminals who have been sentenced to death. Although this kind of forcibly intervening spell can directly extract a suspect's memories as evidence, if the suspect resists stubbornly and refuses to cooperate, his memories will go haywire in the middle of the spell, which is very risky. Speaking up to this point, Warden Liang pursed his lips. Also, if you want to forcibly intervene, according to procedure, you have to ask your superiors first. It wasn't easy to get a lead on the Shuego sect case. If something happens to this suspect, neither I nor Director Zhua can bear the responsibility. So that's how it is. Zhua nodded, then frowned. Then there's only one last way left, Warden Liang. What is it? Zhua whispered something in Warden Liang's ear, and the latter's eyes instantly lit up as he slapped the table. Good. Let's do it. In the special prison cell of Songhai First Prison, the man in the wool hat was detained by 2 prison guards and sent to this prison cell. What the hell are you pushing me for? I can walk on my own. His words were still tough, and he didn't show the slightest bit of fear in front of the 2 prison guards, looking very unyielding. The 2 prison guards looked at each other and laughed. Hee hee. Laugh. You'll be crying later. Then, without saying anything else, the 2 of them directly raised their feet and kicked the man in the butt. It was very obvious that they had been holding back for a long time. This kick was very satisfying. One of the prison guards stared at him. You'll stay here until the second arraignment. Where is this place? It seems pretty spacious. The man got up and looked at the prison guards without a care in the world. After looking around, he laughed shamelessly. TSK. There's actually an independent guard here? Isn't my treatment a little too good? The 2 prison guards sneered and closed the cell door with a loud bang. Through the cell door, the man laughed cruelly at the 2 prison guards who were leaving. What kind of lousy prison is this? Songhai First Prison. The prison guards inside are nothing more than this. However, just as he finished mocking them, the man suddenly felt his hair stand on end. Turning around, he happened to see the 2 prison mates in the special prison cell staring at him with slanted eyes. In a split second, the man was already sweating cold sweat, because these 2 prison mates weren't just anyone. Chapter 325. At this moment, the 2 of them were meditating and resting. They were both wearing the spirit shackles. This was a great magic weapon that could suppress even true immortal magic power. Once you put it on, your spirit energy would be sealed in an instant, And you wouldn't be able to use any Taoist techniques, and you would be no different from an ordinary person. Of course, an ordinary person wouldn't have been afraid in this situation. But one of these two people was the famous master of Immortal Mansion, and the other was Devil Emperor Guapai, who had once shaken the world. Even if their magic power had been sealed, their physical qualities were still there. They could beat him up just by relying on their physical skills. Now, the man finally understood the mocking looks in the two prison guards' eyes. It turned out that they had set a trap for him. In the face of these two beings, who were like Buddhas, the man was terrified from the bottom of his heart. He didn't even dare meet their eyes, and could only lower his head deeply. His mind was wondering if he should learn a move from the TV series Yu Zui, where he would swiftly jump behind one of them, and then use his elbow to clamp down on the other person's head as he yelled, "Don't King mess with me." But the problem was that he didn't dare. The old devil and Chengyu, the master of Immortal Mansion, had already heard the commotion, and they sat cross-legged in silence. After a full 10 minutes of silence, the man felt the air around him freeze. He didn't dare sit down, and he was already feeling pain. After a moment, the old devil slowly opened his eyes and looked at the man. "Newcomer, what crime did you commit to get in here?" The man struggled fiercely in his heart, as he didn't know whether he should speak or not. The old devil swept him a look out of the corner of his eye, and he instantly broke out in a sweat. "You only have two choices here. Either you tell us the truth or you die." It could only be said that the old devil was in the end an old devil. Even the spirit shackles couldn't hide the evil in his heart. Just looking at the man was enough to make him tremble all over, and he directly hugged his head as he shrank into a corner. There was a panic-stricken expression on his face. I cheated on someone. Chengyu, the master of Immortal Mansion. The old devil. The old devil was alarmed, because before he had brought the man here, Ajwa had told them to cooperate. But wasn't the crime the abduction of young girls? Cheating on someone? What the hell was that? The man seemed to realize that his previous words were somewhat ambiguous, so he changed his words. I abducted a young girl. Now it was a match. The old devil nodded in satisfaction, and then slapped the man across the face with a paw sound. What he hated the most was this kind of people who couldn't explain themselves clearly. If he wanted to kidnap a young girl, then so be it. Why did he have to say that he was having an affair? Why did he want to put the blame on his neighbor, Old Wang? Outside the cell, Ajwa and Warden Liang were watching from the surveillance room. After the old devil's slap, the man was instantly thrown into the air and flipped 3.5 times on the spot before falling to the ground. Warden Liang sweated profusely. As expected of the most dangerous prisoner, even with the spirit shackles on, he still had such lethality. But it had to be said that Ajwa's move was really too good. Director Zhua's plan is brilliant. Warden Liang was impressed. I believe it won't be long before this person confesses. However, was it really that easy? Ajwa stared at the surveillance camera and was lost in thought. He somehow felt that the whole matter wasn't so simple. For Shuego sect to be able to kidnap 12 students in a row and still pull the wool over everyone's eyes, it was obvious that there had to be an expert behind the scenes. While Ajwa and Warden Liang were thinking of ways to interrogate this man, who was suspected to be a member of Shuego sect, the local Cultivation police station called with the latest news on the matter. The person on the phone said that the 12 missing students had all returned unscathed. The collective return of the 12 missing students once again alarmed the major news media and became a hot topic on Friday night. The students had been found on the way out of school that day. When they were found, they were all slightly unconscious and had been dumped at the school gate. A surveillance camera at an intersection had captured a van carrying the missing students. After the police checked the license plate, they realized that it was fake. After a follow-up search, the police finally discovered that the van had been driven to the seaside and had been completely destroyed. The entire frame of the van had been burnt to ashes and could be smashed to smithereens at the slightest touch. Everyone thought that the return of the students would lead to crucial progress in the Shuego sect case. Unfortunately, These 12 students didn't remember most of what had happened while they had been captured. In the evening, Wang Ling and Father Wang sat on the sofa and watched the news together, which was all about this incident. The return of the 12 students was of course a good thing, but any criminal gang, especially a dark force like Shuego sect, which had a strict structure and was watertight, would definitely have a purpose in everything it did. The question that people were most concerned about now was what on earth had Shuego sect done to these 12 students. When Wang Ling opened the chat group, it was in the middle of a lively discussion. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said, "Although the police don't seem to have any leads on this matter, I have some ideas." Salian Jinren, senior immortal, tell me about it. Grenade-throwing senior immortal analyzed the situation. After Shuego sect captured 12 missing students in a row, the police didn't know anything about it and sent them all back. This proves that the person behind this probably has a very large intelligence network and is very familiar with the overall map of Songhai City. To have such a large intelligence network, plus the fact that this person should be very powerful, I can roughly deduce this person's identity in two ways. First, this person used to work for the city government's intelligence bureau for a very long time, and is a retired senior leader of the bureau. But the possibility of this is very small. Lightning Dharmaraja. Why? Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Now that we're fighting corruption and promoting honesty, many city leaders don't even dare show their faces at banquets. At most, they eat abalone-flavored fasting pills at home. Where would they find the energy and spare money to establish a new dark force? It's already pretty good if they can afford a down payment on a house in the city school district. Everyone. Wang Ling. Silian Jinren. Then what's the second possibility? Chapter 326. It was July 1st on Saturday in the 10th week of the semester. It was another peaceful morning. Wang Ling realized that the class group chat was particularly lively this morning. Normally, no one would talk in the group at all. For most people, the class group chat was used to send documents. After all, Dopigua had squandered all the topics they usually used to chat about during the morning self-study session. And the most important thing was that some idiot had also pulled Teacher Pan into the group when it had been created back then. This was very awkward. Maybe it was because there had been so much gossip recently, but the class group chat had directly exploded this morning. Wang Ling opened the chat app and found that the number of messages had increased to 99 plus. It was probably because there had been new developments in the Shuego sect incident. He scrolled through the messages and saw a series of them from Dopigua. Did everyone know? The person who was arrested yesterday and suspected to be a member of Shuego sect has confessed. This news hasn't been announced to the public yet, but one of my uncles told me. What's the use of confessing? Aren't all the missing students back? But those students don't remember what happened. According to that person, each of the students who were taken away was fed a kind of fruit. Fed a fruit? What's the purpose? We don't know yet. Also, this person seems to be a peripheral member of the organization in charge of capturing people. After they're caught, they're handed over to the senior officers. He doesn't even know where Shuego sect's stronghold is. And did you know that person also said, actually, Shuego sect isn't called Shuego sect. What does that mean? According to the normal pronunciation, it should be called fruit sect. I don't know which idiot's Mandarin led him astray. Everyone. Wang Ling. Wang Ling scrolled through the rest of Dopigua's messages. According to all the information he had gathered, Shuego sect's real name was actually Fruit Sect. This organization's purpose was to take advantage of the time when the students were out of school to specifically kidnap good-looking students, lock them up in small dark rooms to eat fruit, and then send them back unscathed. Was there something wrong with this organization's brains? After putting the whole thing together, Wang Ling simply wanted to flip the table. Although the students had now been safely released, neither the police nor the school authorities could relax before they found out who Shuego sect's real motive was. The situation where parents had to come and pick them up after school would probably continue for a while. What he was afraid of, however, was that Shuego sect would come up with something else while they were on guard. Wang Ling stared at the screen in deep thought. Although the Shuego sect incident this time hadn't caused any harm to the students of No. 60 High, he had a strong intuition that number 60 High couldn't be ignored. Thinking of this, he smiled bitterly in his heart. His high school life was really colorful. School had only just started, and so many things had already happened. At the same time, on the top floor of Excellent Era's office building in the heart of the city, the lady of the castle sat in an armchair and watched the morning news. At the same time, she sighed inwardly at Taoist Taoye's methods. No one, including the lady herself, could have thought of this move to safely return the students to their original position. From the start of this incident, Taoist Taotai had single-handedly planned all the incidents involving Shuego sect, and the lady of the castle was his partner this time. Mo Immortal Castle had only provided them with all the information they had collected, and a lot of it had been obtained when Song Qingshu had still been in Mo Immortal Castle. The lady of the castle had kept this information, and who would have thought that it would come in handy now? The lady of the castle was halfway through the morning news when she suddenly felt an intimidating aura, which made her shudder all over. She could clearly sense that someone had come, and this person was a top expert. This aura came from the ground floor of the building, and she had already sensed it as soon as he stepped foot into the building. The lady of the castle had a horrified expression on her face, and cold sweat trickled down her forehead. This aura was too terrifying. It was as if that person had walked out from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, and was filled with a murderous aura from head to toe. Furthermore, this aura didn't have a clear direction, and it was very obvious that this person had deliberately released it to brazenly announce to everyone in the building that he had arrived. "Which senior is it?" The lady of the castle hurriedly got up. Her voice traveled through the air and reverberated endlessly in the air. After a few seconds, there was a loud bang as the office door was blown open by this murderous aura. Then, while the lady of the castle was sweating profusely, a man wearing a mask, sunglasses and a black windbreaker slowly walked in from outside. Looking at this person in panic, the lady of the castle hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, Senior Taoist Taotai." The lord of the castle had already told her about Taoist Taoye's appearance. Coupled with that terrifying aura just now, the lady of the castle could almost instantly determine the identity of this person. The man in the black windbreaker didn't speak, and just walked over to the chair in which the lady of the castle had been sitting and sat down. After dozens of seconds of silence, he slowly opened his mouth. Juniors nowadays are becoming more and more unruly." The lady of the castle broke out in a sweat. "Please calm down, Senior Taoist Taotai. This junior didn't expect you to visit this time. Otherwise I would have received you personally. That's not what I'm talking about." The man in the black windbreaker waved his hand and stared at the lady under his sunglasses. "I suddenly wanted to come over and take a look this time, and didn't tell you beforehand. So I don't blame you. But as a junior in the cultivation circle, your subordinates downstairs really lack discipline." The lady of the castle was stunned. "Why do you say that, senior?" The man in the black windbreaker narrowed his eyes. "I didn't want to cause trouble, but when I got to the door, the receptionist at the front desk asked me if I had a reservation. The receptionist insisted on asking me if I had an appointment, and even insisted that I take off my sunglasses and mask." The lady of the castle. The man in the black windbreaker sighed. "And that's not the worst part." The lady of the castle. "Senior, please speak. This junior will definitely ask them to correct their mistakes in the future." The man in the black windbreaker. "I had only taken off my mask halfway when your subordinates started to vomit." The lady of the castle. Speaking up to this point, the man's black windbreaker had already puffed up slightly. It was obvious that he was very angry. The topic of appearance had always been a taboo for Taoist Taotai. Hearing what her subordinates had done downstairs, the lady of the castle blushed with shame in her heart. "Senior is right, my subordinates deserve to die. I didn't say that I killed them. I just knocked them out with my aura, that's all." The man in the black windbreaker said. I was afraid that if they continued to vomit, they would vomit out their golden cores as well. The Lady of the Castle. Chapter 327. The lady was a little despondent at Taoist Taotia's words. Back then, these two brothers, who had been so close to each other that they had established the ranking list of killers together, had now completely fallen out with each other. It was hard to explain why. Of course, there were rumors in the outside world that it had something to do with a mistake that gorgeous itinerant had made on a mission back then, but no one had ever heard the truth. It had been a long time since that incident, and the lady still clearly remembered what the Lord had told her. If Taoist Taotai came to visit, there were two things that couldn't be mentioned. The first was Taoist Taotia's appearance, and the second was the reason why Taoist Taotai and gorgeous itinerant had fallen out. Unless Taoist Taotai himself mentioned these two things, he would definitely get into trouble. In this case, shutting up was usually the best thing to do. After a long time, the man opened his mouth. It's actually been a long time since that incident, but when I think about it, I still feel furious. The lady didn't dare speak at all. She could clearly sense the fury in the man in the black windbreaker when he thought about that incident. The world only knows how unparalleled my senior brother gorgeous itinerant's appearance was, and how peerless his style was. But they never paid any attention to me. Sometimes appearance isn't everything. Taoist Taotai got up and stared at the lady. Do you know? Gorgeous itinerant killed my adopted son Black Gauze with his own hands. That's why we parted ways. There have always been rumors in the outside world that it was a mistake on his part, but in my opinion, he did it on purpose back then. The lady turned pale with shock and felt like she had heard some incredible secret. Taoist Taotai continued. After he broke off with me, he officially retired from the cultivation world and even faded out of the killer circle. After that, he changed his appearance, and I couldn't find him for a very long time. If it wasn't for your Lord, I still wouldn't believe that he would actually become a history teacher in an ordinary high school. Fate makes fools of people. It was clear that Taoist Taotai had never been able to let go of what had happened back then. I've been planning this for a very long time. I want him to feel that pain for himself. Not only that, but I also want everyone to pay for the sins he committed. However, just as the man said this, the lady suddenly saw a ray of light coming in from the building's French windows. Be careful. Taoist Taotai pushed the lady away and stretched out his fingers to catch the light. It was only then that the lady saw that the light's true form was actually a piece of chalk. Then, a faint voice rang out in the air. Who would have thought that the grand Taoist Taotai would actually gossip behind someone's back? What an eye-opener. The lady turned pale with fright. Who is it? Don't panic, it's just a junior. Taoist Taotai waved his hand as he stared at the tip of the chalk and smiled slightly. Your accuracy isn't bad, but your finger strength is still a little lacking compared with your Shurfus. The more ordinary something is, the harder it is to use it as a hidden weapon. There are only 3 people in the world who have the ability to control a hidden weapon like this chalk. The lady. Who is it? Speaking up to this point, Taoist Taotai had already turned to look at the sky and sneered. The first one is the famous killer codenamed Reed, who used his precise hidden weapons back then, and almost made it to the top of the ranking list of killers. Not only is this person accurate in throwing hidden weapons, he's also proficient in firearms. From thousands of li away, he can use his consciousness to precisely control the trajectory of the bullet to take a person's head. Furthermore, he doesn't need to hold down the gun when he fires. He doesn't even need wrist strength when he throws the hidden weapon. He can cause tons of damage just by relying on the nano-level microcontrol of his 2 fingers. But the junior outside probably isn't him, because he has already passed away after many killers joined forces to suppress him back then. The lady. The second one is my senior brother gorgeous itinerant. Taoist Taotai looked at the lady and chuckled. But if it was my senior brother who threw that piece of chalk just now, you would have already passed away. Apart from our Shurfu, there is no one else in this world who can catch my senior brother's hidden weapon. The lady was speechless. She couldn't tell what the hell was the hint of pride in Taoist Taotia's tone when he said this. As for the third person, under his mask, Taoist Taotai smiled slightly. With a light pinch of his fingers, the piece of chalk in his hand instantly turned into flying ash. Only my senior brother's eldest disciple, Killer Taoist. In the air, Killer Taoist's voice rang out. As expected, Senior has a good eye. Your Shifu and I are from the same sect. If I don't even have this little bit of skill, I don't need to mingle around anymore. Taoist Taotai smiled. Are you here to pass on a message for your Shifu? Go back and tell your Shifu. Since we're from the same sect, I'll give him plenty of time to say his last words. On the other end of the air, the voice clearly paused for a moment before it continued. This matter was my idea on the spur of the moment, and wasn't Shifu's idea. He's now living a very stable life, and has long since retired from the world. He has always felt very sorry for what happened back then. If Senior Taoist Taotai is willing to be magnanimous and let it go, that would be for the best. Let it go. Under his mask, the corners of Taoist Taotai's mouth twitched. If an apology works, why do we need the police? Killer Taoist. May I ask, Senior, is there no room for negotiation? I have to avenge Black Gauze. Taoist Taotai narrowed his eyes and replied through the air, his voice echoing in the air. If you want to discuss it, sure. But please ask your Shifu to come see me in person with the ultimate killing weapon he's hiding. You're not good enough. As soon as he said this, a domineering aura shook out from Taoist Taotai's body. This was the murderous aura that only Taoist Taotai possessed. When it was released, even the lady of the castle was directly knocked down. This aura shot straight back in the direction from which the chalk had come, and it was accompanied by powerful spirit power fluctuations that surged like a tide. This was the technique that Taoist Taotai was most familiar with, killing people with qi. After years of using this technique, Taoist Taotai was already very proficient with it, and it could be said that he had already reached the peak of perfection. At that moment, on the roof of a building about 10,000 meters away from the lady of the castle's office building, Killer Taoist's expression changed drastically when he sensed the impact of this aura. He hurriedly set up a barrier and did his best to resist it. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, a white-haired young man in a cap next to him hurriedly stepped forward to help him resist the impact. Bandit Evil took action. Senior brother, I'll help you. However, this collision of auras was too violent. The murderous aura that came in a straight line from 10,000 meters away directly smashed the barrier the two of them had set up without any effort at all. The violent impact tore apart all of Killer Taoist's clothes, and he and his junior brother crashed into the wall behind them. Both of them spat out blood at the same time. After a few minutes or so, the murderous aura dissipated. Bandit Evil suppressed the roiling qi and blood in his body as he looked at Killer Taoist next to him and asked, Senior brother, can Shifu survive this? After suppressing his qi and blood, Killer Taoist couldn't help sighing. I don't know if Shifu can. In any case, my last pair of floral underpants has been destroyed. I'll have to ask Shifu to reimburse me later. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.